Yes.
Good morning,
He's in
everyone. We are live.
trouble.
We are live. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Facebook peeps.
Good morning.
It'll be pouring in just a few seconds.
Guy, did you get the email I sent you for the restaurant?
I
That's
managed. When does that happen?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
That's tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, just look
I will.
for it.
I will reach out tomorrow.
The Paul W. Smith Show, News Talk 760, WJR. Here's special guest host, Guy Gordon.
No, I've been here for a few days now. I'm not that special. Wasn't special to begin with. Good morning, everybody. And Dana, what day is it?
It's hump day.
Uh-oh.
I knew I'd mess up the camel. Sorry, Dana.
Well, then you'll just have to replace the camel mic. Give us your best woohoo. Whoop whoop! There we go. Welcome everybody. We are getting over the hump. We're on the downhill side of the weekend, and look, we got this announcement yesterday from Governor Whitmer. Cut one, please, Mike.
Today, I'm going to announce additional re-engagements for bars and restaurants, nursing homes, and entertainment venues after providing a brief update on our ongoing equitable vaccine rollout.
And I mean, for those of us that have been covering the nursing home issue and the heartbreaking testimony we've heard in the House and the Senate from those with loved ones in nursing homes, amen.
Yeah.
That they can go back in. I know they have to get a test. There's going to be a lot of hoops to jump through, but for all of the folks that I've talked with that have seniors in nursing homes have said, we don't care. We'll do whatever it takes to see mom and dad.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
It's
Great
been
news.
heartbreaking. This is just the most heartbreaking story of all, part of the story of all. I have a friend who had her mother pass away in a nursing home this past year, and she would say that as she'd go to the window to see her mother, the mother would always say, "Oh, come on in, honey. Stop sitting outside."
Yeah.
How many times they told her she just couldn't understand why her daughter wouldn't come inside, and she was always outside this window. And it was just, and she eventually died. It was just heartbreaking.
Yeah, we heard testimony from a woman last week, and we played it on our show, where she said, my mom's legally blind. She's 95 years old, and I've only seen her twice since this started. Now imagine, a senior anyway being so isolated, now imagine the isolation that comes with being blind. And just so, thank God, and we'll hope, and I have no doubt, I have full confidence in the nursing home folks that they can do this well. As for the rest, the one group that was kind of disappointed were the folks at the chamber, because she is not allowing office workers to go back, did appoint a committee to look into it. But that isn't going to be, I think, enough for folks like the chamber. It's kind of the chamber said we're disappointed. They had really hoped to get office workers back. Not happening.
Yeah. At least a percentage of them, right? Like we heard Sandy. I know Sandy had a great conversation with you earlier in the week, Guy, and he was hoping at least to have a percentage allowed back into their offices.
Yeah, here was the quote from the Michigan Chamber. The Michigan Chamber is discouraged that none of the new provisions of the latest order included safely reopening office work. The governor did announce the formation of a work group, but case numbers are drastically lower than they have been throughout the pandemic. And with all the other reopening announcements, it does not make sense to continue to restrict office work. We also heard from the Michigan Restaurant Association. Kind of interesting. Normally, Justin Winslow would be one of our guests today. Turned us down. I'm not quite sure what that's about, but maybe they're trying to give the governor some breathing room on this. But he said, while we were disappointed about the length of the order, this is only good through what, April 19th?
Yeah, that was an unusual thing because he's always been so available and actually interested in talking and responding. But at the bottom of the statement, in the note that we received, it said, we are not taking any interview requests. And I thought that was different, unusual for what we've seen there.
Yeah, I thought so too. So here's my question to you. Plus, we had the great news yesterday with the Biden administration say, and we're going to talk about this on the other side of the break in a moment, but saying that we will have enough vaccines for all adults by May. given the relaxations and restrictions, do you think we're seeing the beginning of the end? Do you think we'll ever see more restrictions placed upon us, or is this the light at the end of the tunnel? Do you believe it?
I think it's the light at the end of the tunnel. Yes, I think we're getting better, closer. We're not done. We still have to be careful, but we are definitely headed in the right direction.
Dana, are you sweeping left or right on this?
I'm in the middle.
Don't go left on us.
Don't go left. All right, I'll go right. I'll go right on this.
The Tinder queen is going to not sweep left on this. Okay.
And I think Marie is saying she's concerned.
Yeah, I was just going to say that this poll by Michigan voters that we heard about saying that a quarter of the people don't plan to get vaccinated. And it's interesting that some of this is falling down party lines, but we need to have large numbers, obviously, of people to get vaccinated in order. Dr. Fauci is saying that you need to have 70 to 85% of the population vaccinated in order to reach what we all know is herd immunity. So I'm a little curious about that new research or that new study that we see out.
Leave it to my favorite news person to be the skeptical one, and I'm right there with you, Marie. And there's another little factoid that we need to get to, and we'll get to that next on the Paul W. Smith Show as our roundtable continues here. But first, let's get to Dana Clark, WJR Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International. For kids in poverty around the world, things are still desperate. Join Compassion International with your one-time $40 gift to provide a COVID relief kit to a family in poverty. Text the word GIVE to 83393. That's GIVE to 83393.
Traffic First also sponsored by Clarkston Window and Door. Over 31 years in business, over 450 combined years of experience installing windows. Trusted specialists at Clarkston Window and Door. Act now to take advantage of 31% off install windows, doors, and garage doors. 248-338-6781 or clarkstonwindow.com. Construction starting tonight, 10 p.m. in Madison Heights along 13 Mile, both directions, right under 75. That overpass is being demolished. Those roadways, that complete area will be shut down until 5 a.m. on Monday. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Primetime Testing Laboratory. In need of autonomous or electric vehicle testing, Primetime Testing is the industry's best in complete automotive testing services from component level to full vehicle. For your next automotive project, get a free quote at primetimetestinglab.com. That's primetimetestinglab.com.
Just seeing a few clouds around with our westerly flow this morning. Temperatures much milder than yesterday morning, almost by double. Some clouds with sun this afternoon and a milder 52. Some clouds tonight, 28. Suburbs a little cooler. Thursday, a mix of clouds and sunshine, 39. Friday, sunshine, milder, 45. From a Weather Channel, meteorologist Ray Stagicom, News Talk 760 WJR.
Doesn't that sound nice? Now let's check in with the late, great Rush Limbaugh and get his thought for the day.
Stockton, California is about to launch an experiment, a no-strings guaranteed basic income of $500 a month for its people to eliminate poverty, supposedly. Now, they're going to start with a select group of residents early next year. Michael Tubbs, Stockton's 27-year-old mayor, says that those who get the free money are going to be tracked and studied. He hopes that they'll collect enough data in a few years to figure out the income floor that people deserve. The money is not coming from taxpayers yet. Yeah, the initial handout is from a group calling itself the Economic Security Project. Facebook co-founder Chris Hughes also co-founded this harebrained scheme. Now, he hopes taxpayers will eventually pay $500 a month to every American earning under $50,000 a year so that they can have income security. Now, as you'd predict, a bunch of Stockton residents are drooling at the idea to get free money. They're already sending letters and emails to the young mayor begging to make the list. Now, this is a special kind of stupid. Economic ignorance on steroids. It's not income security. It's job security for liberals playing Santa Claus with other people's money.
Oh, one of our Facebook peeps, Ron, says sick camel.
Find a needle in a hay.
Yeah, that was the camel's hump was a little on the light side today.
He got his vaccine.
Yeah, and Jane says it has nothing to do with politics. There aren't enough long-term studies. I certainly respect people that want to see that before they take it.
Yep. Yes, I understand that.
But there is no question that this does, for whatever reason, break along party lines. We see a disparity between, and it's interesting too in this, and we didn't get into that, is that it seems to break along metro versus rural as well. That the people that are more vaccine resistant are in outlying counties that have had less experience with COVID. They haven't experienced the death, the illness, the hospitals that were, bordering on being overwhelmed. Good morning, Len.
Case there. Yeah, that people just didn't have personal experience with the virus, with friends and neighbors, and maybe it was, not as for us. We all know people that have had COVID, right? Many of us
and have died.
Yes.
Yeah.
Too many people.
Or have gotten really sick.
Yeah.
We had a wonderful listener. You remember Marie, Tom from Detroit?
Yes.
African-American gentleman who so often was the voice of reason on so many issues. I miss him every day.
Yes.
Every day I wonder, God, I would love to have Tom's take on this. And, it's funny that one voice can make such a difference on a show, but it does.
Well, the thing about Tom was he was smart. He was nice. He could disagree without being disagreeable.
Yes.
He was a very sharp man.
Yeah.
Really nice to talk to.
Yeah. I just so delightful. So yeah, I get the feeling that we're out of the woods on in terms of the shutdowns and the limitations. I think we've seen the last of that. But if you get a chance, Marie, and I told Ann about this, check out Robin Erb's piece. She and Mike Wilkinson on bridgemi.com. She says, the vaccines are coming. But again, it raises the question, can we get them into arms?
Right.
And so here was the thing that really sticks out. They've had 2,500 health departments, pharmacies, doctors' offices, clinics apply to be vaccine providers in the state of Michigan. 2,500. Only 190 have been given vaccines so far.
700. Or visit painfreelifecenters.com. 248-879-1100.
By the way, is my shirt making you guys nauseous? Or is it just me? All right, I'll take it off.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
Trying to seize upon the optimistic news yesterday that came from the Biden administration that it appears we're going to have enough vaccines so that every adult will be able to get one by May, significantly moving up the timeline. You'll remember at one point here in the state of Michigan, it looked like it would be October or November before we might have everybody vaccinated, given the slow pace of the rollout to begin with. Marie raised the poll that we saw in the Detroit Free Press that shows there's still at least a quarter of Michiganders who are just saying, heck no. There is a political element to that it seems that Republicans are significantly more resistant than Democrats or independents. And it seems to be also more of a rural phenomenon. But in Bridge, Michigan, they asked this question today, and they show that the state has said, we can do 80,000 vaccines a day. But if we get the 4 million new doses that manufacturers say are coming by April, that'll be 100,000 vaccines a day that we'll be able to give out. And the question is, do we have the capacity to do that? And a lot of health departments are weighing in and saying, bleep, yes, we can do it. And it's interesting, though, and I was telling the ladies when we were off air for a moment there that they point out in this article there are 2,500 different clinics, doctors' offices, pharmacies, and health departments that have applied to be providers of vaccine, 2,500, but only 190 have received vaccines thus far. So there's this huge untapped potential of pharmacies and doctors' offices that are really, really eager to do it. And the Michigan Health Society came out day before yesterday and said, we're ready, send them to us. Because we can do this safely in our clinics and in our doctors' offices. So there's room for optimism out there, but if there's a question about whether we can get to that kind of herd immunity at 75% and maybe lower.
Well, one important thing we do have to remember, when you get vaccinated, you can still get COVID. You just will not get it severely, and you hopefully will not die. So it doesn't mean you can just be willy-nilly. We still have to do what we've been doing, washing our hands, wearing our
100%.
masks, staying apart as much as you can. Yes, things will start to open up and we can get more out there, but don't think that just because you're vaccinated or someone else is vaccinated that you can't get it or pass it on.
Let me ask you about the governor's order yesterday increased, I think, to 300, the limit you can have for an outdoor private venue. Does that mean that weddings are on for this spring if we continue with that?
Yes.
It sounds like it, Guy. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because I looking at that, I went, okay, I just thought of all the couples last year that put it off until this spring.
Yeah.
And and that's a huge industry. The catering industry is one. They haven't come back because they haven't been able to do the large gatherings. We've got a bunch of clients that and friends that are in the business that have said, yeah, I'm not even 20%.
So that would be 300 outside, and then in an inside venue, that would be 50% of the venue. So if you had a big catering hall or a banquet hall and they fit 500, you could do 250. Is that accurate?
I've got to go back and bring that up.
I wonder what the fine print on that would be, because can you really, because some of these venues are 1,000.
So they say movie theaters, bowling alleys, and other entertainment purveyors increase indoor capacity to 50% up to 300 people.
Oh, okay. So you could have a 300-person wedding, it sounds like.
Yeah. The bummer is that even places like arenas and athletic stadiums, they're still capped, which means it doesn't look like we're going to have much of an opening day at Comerica Park.
Well, I asked Trev last night, and he said they're letting 10,000 people in on opening day.
Opening day, wow!
So that must have been in the fine print. And is it just opening day, or is that going to be for
opening day?
Oh, just opening day.
Interesting.
Well, and how far away are we from opening day? 6 weeks?
April 1st. I think April.
Okay,
yeah, April 1st or something.
Okay, so we're like less than 4 weeks. So I just wonder how many more shot arms we're going to get by that time.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question that I had. Mayor Duggan came out yesterday. We've got this whole debate about, don't we need to get seniors vaccinated first before we start expanding? Yesterday, he said in the city of Detroit, they're going to start vaccinating manufacturers. Well, my question is, are you done with seniors yet? And if you are, I know a lot of folks out in outlying areas that think that maybe they should be a little bit further in line than younger manufacturing workers. And I got nothing against the folks in the plants getting it. It's just about making sure that the most vulnerable populations are covered first. Am I wrong about that?
I agree with that.
Guy, I think they have a large portion of the seniors vaccinated in the city of Detroit, as many as I think they can get through. So that's why they've opened it. Because, in Detroit, 60 and above, their bottom is 60 and above can get a vaccine.
Oh, I know. Well, at 55, if you're bringing a senior, right?
If you're bringing a senior, so there's that. And so they're ahead of some of us out here, and certainly in Oakland County and in Macomb County.
Well, and in Livingston County passed this resolution saying this social vulnerability index was really unfair. Well, they may look at this and say, well, look, if you got so many doses that you can now expand it to those less vulnerable populations and younger populations, then maybe we should redeploy some of those resources. And it may be a moot point in the next week or so as some of these Johnson & Johnson vaccines come online. It was just one of those things that raised my eyebrow, and I thought, I wonder how that's playing out in other areas with seniors that are, 65, 70 and have been waiting for more than a month now.
Do you think we'll see an adjustment in the next couple of weeks, that they will get a little bit less and they will give some to some of the outlying areas, Guy?
Yeah, I think you're going to hear calls for it, whether it happens or not, but I think it's a question to ask the governor. You're using this SVI to do this. She used the word equitable many times yesterday. And so I know it's a priority and I get it, but there's also fairness too. And if you've got seniors that haven't gotten one yet, I would say the fairness argument maybe ought to win out until we get all those folks covered. And then we got the folks that are still waiting to get one because they don't want one. So we'll sort that out. When we come back, the confidentiality agreement with the state health director, learned a lot more about it yesterday. Also got some answers, and that's in air quotes, from the governor. We'll tackle that next here on the Paul W. Smith Show. Let's get to Dana, WJR Traffic first.
Traffic first, sponsored by Amish Direct Furniture. Amish Direct Furniture carries a huge variety of high-quality handmade furniture made here in the USA. Stop by Amish Direct's new showroom in Sterling Heights and meet their knowledgeable staff, or shop online at amishdirect.com. That's amishdirect.com. Upcoming construction tonight, heads up in Madison Heights, 13 Mile, both directions, under 75 at 10 p.m. All lanes will shut down until 5 a.m. on Monday. That's for overpass demolition. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by the National Electrical Contractors Association, NECA. Put the expertise and skill of NECA signatory contractors to work on your commercial, public, industrial, or residential construction project. NECA contractors like Highgate Electric are powering Michigan's future project after project, on time and on budget. Learn more at smcneca.org. In for a bit of a warm-up today, still cold, but not as cold as yesterday morning. Clear skies, 31 degrees. Yesterday, we were in the teens. Today, sunshine to start, a few afternoon clouds, hitting 53 degrees. Tonight, partly to mostly cloudy, your overnight low 28. Well, it's Michigan, so we dip back down on Thursday. Clouds in the morning, some sunshine, peaks of it later in the day, and a high of 36 on Thursday. I'm Dana Clark, WJR News with Marie Osborne in about 1 minute.
You know, over the years, our Michigan communities have been through many.
You know, Guy, I know you're looking at some of our viewers this morning and what they're having to say. Their conversation kind of amongst themselves is interesting about why they are still waiting a little bit on the vaccine. And it's funny that I'm watching it because I do agree with them. I mean, it is a little bit scary. You know, we don't know what the long-term side effects are going to be. There's no way to know. And I know the technology for the vaccine has been studied for many, many, many years. But, Jane's bringing up some good points.
I don't disagree. And it's a private decision. I'm just curious as to why their concerns are greater than those. I've been really curious about this because President Trump, for whatever his shortcomings in putting his full bully pulpit power behind wearing masks and other things, has been very clear on supporting vaccines. And I don't know why everything seems to break along the political fault line.
Yeah.
Right?
Although I think he could have come out a little earlier and said that he was vaccinated. I think it would have been helpful.
Oh, right. Why hold that back?
Because I do think that helps maybe some of his followers who were concerned about it, that, they think, okay, well, he's done it too.
Well, probably if it were up to him, we would have never known that he had it.
Yeah. David points out, and this is true as well, that this mRNA technology, this idea of using messenger RNA, has been around
for a long time.
And it's been used in a variety of things. So you do have a base of knowledge on this, that for as novel as it is, the strain is novel. The idea of a COVID vaccine isn't, and that's why we were able to do it in 8 months. The foundation was already there.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Paul brings up a good point too. What is the actual survival rate? And as we've gone along here, it's gotten better and better because we've figured out how to handle it, right?
That's interesting. I answered that question for Paul yesterday, and he's asking it again. I mean, we don't know. And the reason we don't know is because we don't know how many asymptomatic cases are out there who have some degree, and that's determined, the survival rate is how many have died versus how many have had it. That's the fraction that you have to work, right?
And we don't know how many.
We don't know what the denominator is because with this asymptomatic factor, with SARS and some of these other mini pandemics that we saw, it wasn't until 1 or 2 years after that they really could determine a hard number. But what we do know For kids, it's lower than the flu. But for adults, it's not. It's well above the 0.1% fatality rate that
some
we have
adults
seen.
really get it. They really end up.
And when you start to and when you start to slice that pie based on age, if you're over 60, it's an ugly number. And we just don't know how large it is. And we had this Dr. McCarty on, who's with Johns Hopkins, and he's on Fox a lot. And he, the guy that says we're going to have herd immunity by April because we've got this universe of people that have been exposed to it. They've got the T cell activation, they have the antibodies, but we just don't have a test to confirm that.
Okay.
And so it's
well, the flu was much better this year, right?
Yes.
It was non-existent.
Right, because
we're washing our hands and wearing
the
masks.
Right thing. Yeah.
So let me ask you this: if you get a cold in the future, or you start to feel symptomatic, are we going to become like the Japanese? Do you think that more people will wear masks just as an expression of courtesy?
Definitely.
Yes.
I will.
We should wear it almost for that season.
I will too. I might even wear it during flu season.
Right. That's what I mean. Like we should probably wear it, for the few months where it starts getting cold and people start getting colds and the flu. I mean, what could it hurt?
Right.
Well, it's one of those things that seems to me was specific to the Japanese culture.
Yes.
And they've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah. And
so they know
I always
what's
thought,
up.
I always thought, well, that's an expression of kindness and care that is really kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah,
but if you did it here in the United States, because it's not
you
common to us,
looked at,
people would think that you've really got something bad.
Right.
Now that that's totally changed. I have
Maybe
a friend
that thought will go out the window now.
Yeah,
So.
and my teacher friend said that in her school, obviously no flu, but really hardly any sickness at all.
Hardly any
how
cold.
the kids get the strep throat and all that kind of jazz.
Yes.
And she was wondering aloud the other day whether or not it would be smart to wear a mask during this, the cold.
Cold and flu season.
And she said they've gotten used to that. The kids are used to it, the teachers are used to it, and it works. And if you can keep people from getting really sick, wow.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, why not? And it doesn't have to be that long. You could
No.
do it, a couple months. In the heart of when people get really sick. Because let's face it, some years the flu is really bad.
Yeah, and colds. And then people come out and come to school or come to work when they know they have a cold. Like, don't do that. Don't do that.
Well, that's another good question.
Exalted.com/co.
Will you stay home from work if you don't feel good? Because a lot of people don't now.
They don't.
In the future, will you stay home?
Right, but at least if they're coughing now, they have a mask on.
Hey, well, I might not stay home from work, but I will wear
60 WJR. Here's special guest host Guy Gordon.
And happy Wednesday, everybody. Do we have the camel ready this time?
Woo!
There we go.
There she is, and there he is.
Oh, we're on the downhill side of the weekend, everybody, and we're looking forward to it. And welcome into the Paul W. Smith Show. If you haven't joined us already, we've already got a great group chatting things up on our WJR Facebook page, watching us live, as well as listening on News Talk 760 WJR. We've been talking about the good news about the restaurants and especially the nursing homes. Office workers, the folks in the business community did not get what they wanted from the governor yesterday in terms of allowing people to go back, but we did have a lot of good news. The one thing that is still dogging the governor, and it's going to dog her for a while, and it perhaps could put her appointment of Elizabeth Hertel as the new health director in jeopardy, is this confidentiality agreement, not one, but at least 3 that we know of, struck with different appointees that have left state employment. All of them supposedly resignations, and I'm using air quotes. She was asked about that in her news conference yesterday. One reporter asking, is it normal that when somebody voluntarily leaves of their own volition that you pay them 9 months worth of salary plus benefits? The governor did what she has a tendency to do sometimes, which she danced around. She went to prepared remarks talking about how difficult it has been on her department heads and department leaders during the pandemic, and then said this. Cut 4, Mike.
Separation agreements, to your question, are used often in the public and private sector when someone in a leadership position leaves an organization. And due to the nature of the agreement, there's not a lot more that I can say on this subject. However, I do want to say this. There were not any improprieties with Director Gordon's work. It's simply that he tendered his resignation and I accepted it. And I appointed a new director, Elizabeth Hertel, who has hit the ground running. She's doing incredible work. And she needed to put her own team together at DHHS so that we can stay laser focused on ramping up our vaccine effort and end this pandemic and get to life, back to life as normal.
Let's take that first statement that they are common. No, they aren't. There has been a number of business leaders and ethics professors quoted in a variety of publications saying, yes, they're common in private companies and nonprofits. They are not the norm in government because of transparency with tax dollars. They quoted this gentleman from Santa Clara University, also one from the Gerald R. Ford Public Policy University, who say, no, it is not the norm. The confidentiality clause, and this is a quote, raises ethical concerns because it does not allow the public to know why the payout of salary took place. These are public tax dollars, and the public interest tends to be served better when transparency is present. The gentleman from the Gerald R. Ford Center says it looks like something funny is going on and money is changing hands, and the rest of us can't figure out why. There may be a good reason for it, but we're not allowed to ask that, and no one allowed is involved to say anything about it. You agree?
Yes. I think that it is unusual in state government to see something like this because it's our state tax dollars.
And it's even more unusual that on January 3rd, the governor came out and issued a proclamation and an executive, not an order, but a directive, talking about how important transparency is, especially when it came to public monies. And for her to say this now, and Dr. Gordon weighed in, and by the way, he lost his father on Saturday, not Dr. Gordon, Director Gordon, lost his father on Saturday. And that may have been an element, but when you look at the confidentiality agreement, it sounds like that there was more of a dispute about policy that led to his separation. Got a call from yesterday from a source who's been involved in government for decades, who said, look, we have people like this in our institution. They are at-will employees. You don't even have to tell them why you're letting them go. And certainly, if they resign, you're not going to pay them. You're going to say thank you. You may extend their benefits a little longer. You may do some things to reward them. You may do it with vacation. But you don't have to sign a confidentiality agreement, and you never would because it's public dollars.
All right. So what about the fact that, again, we're under a pandemic? Was there something that needed to remain under wraps just due to the unprecedented medical circumstances we find ourselves in?
It is a good question.
Well, there are no question there are unprecedented circumstances, but the more skeptical and cynical question that arises out of that is, was he involved in negotiations that were sensitive? Does he know something that they don't want being made public? And is that the reason for the payout? And that's the question that Republicans are asking. She was asked yesterday, why would it ever be necessary to have a separation agreement in the first place with an at-will employee? And secondly, what do you say to Republicans who say this looks like hush money? Cut 2, please, Mike.
Tim, I've explained the nature of a separation agreement. We have been through a lot over the last year. It has taken a toll. The former director resigned. I accepted it, and we're continuing to move forward because we've got a lot of tough work to do. So at the
was it hush money?
Tim, I really bristle at the that characterization. It is the nature of a separation agreement when someone in a leadership position leaves is that, there are terms to it and you can't, share every term to it. And that's simply what it is.
Well, isn't that convenient? And I guess my question is, Governor, if you're bristling, there's a way to get your bristles fixed, and that is to throw a little sunlight on this. And that may happen now because Republicans on the House Oversight Committee and Senate Oversight Committee are both saying, if it comes to that, we'll issue subpoenas because in the confidentiality agreement, they talk about that if this is FOIA'd, that they will respond and they will disclose. But first of all, they have to pursue that.
And also, and I know you know this guy, and Ann and Dana as well. Steve Gray also was the former unemployment director. He resigned last November 5th. He also got a payout, right? $85,000, $86,000 almost. And then that's along with Robert Gordon and then Sarah Esty, who was a deputy to Gordon. So now there's three people here. It isn't just this one person. There are three people here within the last few months who've kind of had this sort of deal.
But none of them carried the weight, the power. And remember, once the Supreme Court ruled that she could not issue these executive orders, that they were unconstitutional, to some extent, some of her power transferred to Robert Gordon as director of the health. And so, I mean, he became almost, in terms of our economy and health policy, maybe the second most powerful person in government.
Definitely.
He isn't just some schmo appointee that you say, well, he's been under a lot of stress. It's been a very difficult time, and so he resigned. We deserve better transparency, and we've got this petition that's going to be coming out calling for more expansion of FOIA laws, Freedom of Information Act laws. We're the only one of two states, as we have said before, that doesn't address this when it comes to the legislature and when it comes to the governor's office. And it sounds like that the Senate, Ed McBroom, who's Senate Oversight, says that Mike Shirkey and others in his party are on board with that. So we'll see if this finally brings some sunshine to the state of Michigan. We will be back with more when we return. Bill Wild, the mayor of Westland, part of the Michigan Municipal League, speaking with the Secretary of Treasury. What are they going to do to help municipalities get back on their feet? We'll tackle that next on the Paul W. Smith Show as we continue on your Wednesday with Dana Clark, WJR Traffic First.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International. For kids in poverty around the world, things are still desperate. Join Compassion International with your one-time $40 gift to provide a COVID relief kit to a family in poverty. Text the word GIVE to 83393. That's GIVE to 83393.
Accident free on the roadways is seeing a 30-minute delay for trucks across the Blue Water Bridge westbound between Canada and the U.S. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel.
The weather quickly back in the forecast. We're kind of up and down over the next few days. Some clouds this morning, a few clouds with sun this afternoon, high 50.
And Guy, to continue that conversation just a little bit more, is I would submit that it shouldn't be really the politics. It will be, but it shouldn't be involved in this, because really for all of us as taxpayers, this is an issue that should be discussed and brought out, any kind of a non-disclosure. Unless there's just something really, really sensitive, I think we as taxpayers and residents of a state of Michigan in this case, we deserve to know what happens here. As Daniel House pointed out yesterday, we're in the middle of the biggest health crisis we've ever had. And to have these right now, especially with the head of the health department, you have to know that all eyes were going to be on that and questioning it. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat or whatever your political leanings are. This is something that all of us should be wondering about and questioning it. And maybe somebody can explain to us, hey guys, back off. It's not that big a deal. But I just think in state government, you got to be really careful with these.
It's just that what's so frustrating is the fact you see so many legislators and the governor talking out of both sides of their mouths. Now, we've heard from the Granholm administration, we've heard from the Snyder administration, who has said, we never used these confidentiality agreements. We know that Governor Whitmer, as a state senator, went ballistic when Andy Dillon was allowed to continue getting benefits and making some money when he resigned as state treasurer. And she raised a stink about it in the state Senate. Well, then you come in as governor yourself and you start doing these what appear to be kind of sweetheart deals. I think that's what really angers people and should anger people on both sides. The problem is, you're right, there's this partisan thing. The term hush money is a loaded word.
Yeah, I don't know that I would use that term.
But it's just, let's talk about just the concept of transparency. And I got so frustrated. The House now has, I think, on 3 different occasions, the Republican-controlled House has passed the FOIA legislation to expand it to the governor's office and to the legislative branch. and it's died in the Senate every time. Senator Arlen Meekoff was one of those guys that put a bullet in it when he was Senate Majority Leader. I asked him about it one day, and he was like, well, that's just they don't have any right to look at our stuff like this. Well, at the time, we had these payouts being made in Congress to Congress people who had been involved in sexual harassment complaints, millions going out the door. Yeah, we have a right to know about that.
But, I mean, government for the people,
he
by
sounded
the
like
people.
the kind of ivory tower entitled public servant that should make person, regardless of party, say, what the heck?
Yeah, I mean, it's government. It's different. It's not a private business. It's totally different. It's for the people, by the people. I mean, it's you can't change my mind on this one. I'm sorry. It's just
Here we come. Mayor Wild is there.
Okay.
ask him about this guy too. See if he'll talk about it.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
As they continue to debate and move toward a vote in the Senate on the COVID relief bill, which contains, I think, $350 billion for states and local governments to help them defray the unanticipated costs of COVID-19, one of our local municipal leaders and also the top dog at the Michigan Municipal League now, Mayor Bill Wild of Westland, joining us live because he had a meeting with a very important person yesterday. Mayor Wild, it's always a pleasure. Been too long.
Hey, good morning, Guy. How are you this morning?
Excellent, sir. You had a chance to sit down with the Secretary of the Treasury, who will be the person that will be dispensing these support dollars to state and local governments. What was your impression as you left her about the kind of relief and support you're going to be getting from the Biden administration?
I was very happy with the meeting, and I was able to join a small group of mayors, and I was the mayor that represented the Midwest in this conversation. And, I thought the meeting was productive, and I thought it was pretty remarkable in the Secretary's understanding of the effect the pandemic has had on local government and the importance of allowing flexibility in using this funding moving forward. And I think that mayors are going to have a direct line of communication with the White House, with the Biden administration.
Help me with that flexibility part, because I understand that every community is different and you have different needs. But there is this persistent criticism and concern that poorly run municipalities are going to be using this to erase sins of the past that were of their own making that have nothing to do with COVID. So what strings or conditions will come with this money to make sure that it's to defray and to offset the COVID-related calamities?
Well, Guy, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's one of the things that the perception that we fight on this. But at the end of the day, that this is exactly what's going to happen. Is that this funding is being set up through Treasury, and communities, all 19,000 local governments across the country will be eligible for this money. You'll have to draw down on that money, so you're going to have to. You're going to have to let the Treasury know what you're using with this money. But at the end of the day, what it's really for, it's to make up for those unrealized revenues that all of us at the local government are going to be losing. We're bound to have a balanced budget, and those budgets are based on forecasted revenues. So this is going to give us a chance to, as we move forward, the COVID affected local government's going to have a long tail. So as we move forward and those revenues that we balance our budgets on are not realized, we'll be able to draw down on these funds to keep the balanced budgets. And I'll give you just a little example of exactly what I mean. Is in the city of Westland right now, we're mailing out our summer tax bills. Mm-hmm. These are the biggest bills that our business owners and our residents are going to get. Those are going out to residents that have not been able to make their mortgage payments. They're going out to businesses that have actually closed during COVID. So we're expecting a big drop off in our property tax collection for next year. And this funding is going to be able to help us draw down to fill in that gap, because it's those tax dollars that we use to pay for our police officers, our firefighters, and deliver the local services.
It's interesting you bring that up, Mayor Wild, because there's a question about whether or not we've seen the full impact of COVID yet on government revenues. New York Times did a breakout, though, of state by state. And I mean, when you look at this, first of all, I think we ought to begin with the assumption that most states ought to be able to weather a revenue decline of 3 to 4%. That's what rainy day funds are for. And when you look at this, there's an astonishing number of states that fall into that category. And Michigan, our state revenues actually increased 0.3%. So is there too much money going to the states, especially states that haven't suffered financial harm?
And that's the problem you have when you lump this funding, when you lump the state and the local fundings together, because both state government budgets and local budgets have been impacted differently. In Michigan, the state has benefited because it's got a more diverse revenue stream than local government, and states have also received direct revenue allocations from the federal government previously for COVID. In the state of Michigan, only one city received direct funding from the federal government, and that was the city of Detroit.
Let me ask you another criticism that I've heard of this, and I think it's important. You've talked about the unanticipated costs and revenue shortfalls that you've experienced. And yet, when this pie is being divvied up to the states, they are not using revenue shortfall as a determinant for how much money they send. They are not using any kind of cost justification. They're using the unemployment rate. A, that seems pretty arbitrary, and B, Republicans are saying, well, you're rewarding those states that shut things down the most, maybe unnecessarily. Is the unemployment rate a good criteria for determining how this money is divvied up?
I can't advocate for how the states are they're using. I mean, at the local level, obviously, we can't balance our budget on those dollars. So, for the states to use that as their metric, I'm probably not the right person to ask that question to.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this one, because you have at-will employees in the city of Westland and in other businesses and things you've done. If you've got an employee that is supposedly resigning voluntarily, and I'm asking this as a hypothetical, it's not anything in the news or anything, Mayor, would you give them a confidentiality agreement and continue their salary for 9 months?
Well, I think we've seen instances like that in Wayne County in the past, and I don't think it turned out very good. But I don't think the situation you're talking about, I don't think that we know all the details to it. I do think that sometimes in government you have to, ask people to sign waivers of claims for to relieve future claims, and I'm not sure exactly what went into that agreement. But
well, wait a minute, though, Mayor. He's an at-will employee. He doesn't have any future claims. He serves at will. He can be terminated at any time with no cause. And it wasn't just one. It wasn't just one agreement. It's been at least three, and we're just beginning to learn all of this. I guess I'm just asking as a practice. Is that a good practice, do you think, especially when we're talking about the public sector and public dollars?
I would say no. I'd say the optics of it are hard to defend. And with my at-will employees, we have details in their contracts for severance packages, and obviously, if you leave the job voluntarily, you don't qualify for that.
Yeah, give us a sense if you can put an average on it before we close this up. In terms of municipalities, and you talk to all of them with your work at the league, what has been the average revenue shortfall? How bad is this going to be going forward?
That's hard to say, because at the Michigan Municipal League we represent from the top city, Detroit, all the way down to the smallest village in the state. So every village and city and township is affected differently, but the one thing is that it's affected everybody. And when you look at how these communities are funded, through property tax and through fees and grants, and it's just, as we talked earlier, it's going to have a long tail, and I don't think we're going to know the total loss in revenue to communities for still a couple more years.
Okay. Yeah, there's so much of this, and the thing with this is we keep getting surprised because there always seems there's a new wrinkle. Mayor Wild, always appreciate our conversations. I apologize for putting you on the spot with the agreement question. But I had to ask because I know you're an ethical guy that has dealt with this before in your life, and I wanted to get your take on it. Thank you so much. Have a great day, sir, and we appreciate the information.
Okay, you too, guys. Thank you.
All right, Mayor Bill Wild from Westland, a good sport because I kind of blindsided him there, even though he answered it perfectly. We'll be back with more on the Paul W. Smith Show when we come back. An interesting development involving Rocket Mortgage. The Game Stoppers have gotten involved in Rocket stock. We'll explain why next on the Paul W. Smith Show for your Wednesday.
This report is sponsored by Exergen. Accuracy matters. Get a $5 rebate by trading up any non-contact thermometer toward an Exergen purchased at any retailer. Accuracy matters, especially when it comes to checking for a fever. Exergen's accuracy is backed by published, peer-reviewed clinical studies. Details at exergen.com.
Still seeing a 30-minute delay for trucks across the Blue Water Bridge westbound between Canada and the U.S. Otherwise, no reported accidents. Now, WJR weather first from the Weather Channel. It's going to be a nice day today. Some clouds, some sun mixed in, but warmer. A high of 53 tonight, partly to mostly cloudy. Your low 28 on Thursday. We dip back into the mid-30s, clouds early, then some more sunshine in the afternoon, a high of 36. Clear skies, currently 31 degrees. I'm Dana Clark, WJR News with Marie Osborne in 2 minutes.
That was an interesting question there. A very good question and an interesting reaction. At the end of the day, that was interesting.
Well, he tried to avoid, saying anything that was, too critical of the. But what's crazy about this is that it is this idea that Gordon was an at-will employee, and right off the top, the first line says this was a resignation, so it's trying to establish how they're going to talk about the separation. Why is that necessary? Secondly, it talks about that this agreement and the payment means that that he is discharging any claims he would have against the state. What claim does he have against the state if it was a voluntary resignation? He's an at-will employee. Right. He can look at them cross-eyed and they can let go of him. And they can still not have to play. He still wouldn't have a claim. So what claim would he have? In what universe would he have a claim from resigning?
Well, and look what happens here. So that kind of an agreement immediately causes people just like you to say exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
You can't help it. I mean, it's your state. It's your tax dollars. The people those people work for us. It's the optics are wild. I mean, it's nobody. There must have been no consulting with anybody about this. The other question too I had was, I believe his assistant, his deputy director, there was a deal with her, but I don't think there was a non-disclose on that, right?
No, Etsy wasn't a non-disclose.
And what about the other one?
That one,
I'm not clear on that.
Well, yeah, I wasn't clear on it either. And that's the only thing, they keep, the partisan talking point is hush money. Well, but we're seeing a pattern here of her giving very nice parachutes to directors that were problematic. I mean, I liked Steve Gray a lot. He was very accessible and forthcoming, but that was the most beat-up mess I've ever seen in terms of rollout. And granted, their infrastructure wasn't built for the kind of surge they saw, but we're still dealing with problems from that.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And then you've got the whole fraud thing. I was going to talk with Marie in this segment about the Detroit Fire Department launching the audit. Mm-hmm. And also this thing with GameStop, because it will set us up for the Sowerby interview at 6:48. Does that make sense to you? Is there anything else you want me to hit in this little discussion with her?
I don't think so. I think those two. I think the audit is a great thing, and as far as I can tell, I think those two make the most sense to me. Let me just check something real quick here.
Well, and it's been interesting during COVID, the fire chiefs that would normally be in an oversight position at the fire stations haven't been. They meet the crew at the location. And I think that's because they had some guys get really sick and they found themselves short of fire chiefs early on. And so they were trying to insulate leadership. Well, the problem is the cat was away.
Oh.
So, and Sean Lay yesterday again was just kicking tail on this. And but to see the union rep that was in here, there was so much denial and so much spinning, and it was just.
So how does that work with firefighters? They live at the station during their shift time, like maybe for 4 days, and then they go back home. How is that set up? Do you know?
I thought, wasn't it 3 on, 3 off? Wasn't that the old? And it's been so long.
It's been a long time since I've covered anything fire department related. And so what you're saying is maybe some people were there for their time period, 3 on, 3 off, but on the 3 on, there wasn't a lot of supervision in some of the houses, firehouses.
So that's the question, is that when you've got the chiefs meeting you at scenes, you're not looking at what's going on at the firehouse. In this case, these guys got into a couple of rigs, went to a retirement party.
Right.
And, we've done this before with undercover video, these guys going out to lunch, but going out to lunch at a strip club where they can buy drinks.
Right.
And I kind of thought that once we had some women in the fire department that might stop. And, it was a boys will be boys kind of thing. Well, I don't know that there is a culture of drinking in the fire department, but that's what Sean is hearing from some, and others are saying, no, it's just not true. But remember, it's not just one department. It's like 50 mini departments with different companies stationed around town. It may even be fewer than that now.
And the question is, how do you supervise all that? How is, you know what I mean?
By having a leadership, by having a chief in every station house, which is what they apparently used to do, and they haven't been because of COVID.
That may change. Is it the mayor that's asking for the audit, by the way? He did do that press conference yesterday, and I know he was addressing the situation because he was concerned.
He is issuing a no tolerance comment while saying that they're heroes, and he's right about both.
Yeah, he is.
So they're taking 4 steps here, according to the FREEP. That there's zero tolerance on substance abuse. Command staff are going to return to on-site work full-time immediately.
There's that issue.
And they're going to work with the union to enhance the substance assistance program. And they're going to they call it an independent environmental audit. I'm not quite sure what that means, but.
Just looking at it right now.
It's a good point that you've got.
Let me see if Marie can pop in here.
Hey, Guy,
where's Marie? Is she going to be on a regular line?
I don't know. You want me to call her?
I can ask her to pop on.
Okay. Hey, Guy, just let you know, have that market minute billboard handy. We have to do it after the 42 news. Or I'm sorry, 42 traffic.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to call Marie here.
I texted her too, Mike.
Okay.
So she'll pop in if she can do it, I'm sure.
Okay.
If not, I mean, she should be on. She's always on Access at this time, just so you know.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so she's there.
That's a problem, because then I don't know whether she's there or not. I don't know how.
Yeah, I know. It's easier if you can see her.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to do that here.
We're coming back. Marie's going to be on her Access, so she'll be there. So here we come.
Okay.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
We had a colleague of mine, Sean Lay, on yesterday to talk about what's been happening in the Detroit Fire Department, where there have been 2 incidents now in less than 8 days involving firefighters and even fire command members involved in drinking on duty incidents. In the case of Fire Chief 5, he went off an embankment at the lodge. His vehicle was hung up on some fencing. He was literally dangling over the side embankment of the freeway. That obviously is extremely problematic. Then we had another firefighter, I think it was from Engine Company 6, that was involved in an accident with a $500,000 rig, and he had been drinking on duty at a retirement party along with some colleagues. And so now, Marie, apparently there's going to be some action on the part of the city. They're going to initiate an audit, but and we heard some very, very strong statements from the mayor on this yesterday.
Yes, indeed, and I understand that the chief, I don't know his position, the one who had this car dangling over this embankment here at the freeway, that person has had an issue before, a discipline issue with perhaps drinking on the job. So this person has had a history of this. This is an unprecedented time for the fire department, having these kinds of issues coming to light.
Well, and it calls into question, every employer now has some kind of substance abuse assistance program to help employees deal with this if they have that, so that they maybe can get back on the job. In his case, back in, I think it was 2015, he was caught using an illegal, it was codeine. So it was
unprescribed, right?
Unprescribed codeine. The mayor came out yesterday and said the men and women of the Detroit Fire Department are heroes. We depend on them every single day. We're not here to focus on who's to blame, but we're focusing on how we're going to solve it. And then he said, I just don't want to be any question. I take this very seriously. It's not going to be tolerated. On the other hand, I have a responsibility to make sure there's support for these firefighters, and we're going to do that too. I thought he struck the right balance.
Right, and there was I saw Sean's report last night as well on Channel 4, and he had a quote from one of the fire supervisors saying that you cannot drink on the job. That's grounds for dismissal, period. There's there's no wiggle room there. That's how that works, and for obvious reasons, that's the case. So it remains to be seen. But the big question, and I know that Sean talked to you about this as well, is how widespread is this problem now? If you're seeing these 2 very big and sort of sensational incidents, how many others are out there?
Yeah. One of the things that they're going to do, and I think it's an important first step, there's going to be, first of all, what they call an environmental audit. I don't know what the environment has to do with it, but apparently that's a term I'm not familiar with. Secondly, they're going to put Fire Command back into the stations. Because of COVID and because it hit their department so hard and they lost so many commanders to illness, they insulated them. They allowed them to work outside the station. Well, it was kind of a cat's away, mice will play concern now, so they are going to put the fire department leadership, the chiefs, back in the firehouse to make sure that doesn't happen, and that will happen immediately. And I think that will maybe solve a good part of the problem.
Absolutely. I mean, their jobs are hard enough, as we all know, and certainly in any kind of environment. But in the last year, it's been very, very difficult. But if this is part of a bigger problem, they really do need to get to the root cause of that and why that is.
Yeah, no question about it. And we should point out, too, that this is a department that's been under stress. They saw their workload, I think, more than triple. Because they began doing health runs, emergency medical runs, as well as fire runs. So they've seen their workload increase, and it is still one of the most stressful jobs in town. So there's a lot to be sensitive to here, but we also have to protect the public from people that are driving rigs that are incredibly large and some of the biggest rigs on the road. One of the interesting things happened yesterday. Did you see what happened to the stock of Rocket Mortgage?
Yeah,
Dan Gilbert had a very good day, but it is a cause for concern because the price of Rocket Mortgage stock rose 70% yesterday based on very little news at all in 3 days after their earnings report. So the question is, what the heck was driving it? And it appears that there are a lot of short sellers out there, people who believe that even though Rocket has been really, really doing well, that they're not going to do as well in the future, so they're betting on a stock decline. Well, the GameStop group, these armchair hedge fund managers that are sitting in the basement, came in and started to get in the face of the short sellers and bid up the price of Rocket stock. But when you see that kind of volatility, that's a cause for concern, especially with a company that's as important to this community as Rocket.
I was just going to say that. I mean, the day traders were very busy yesterday, but for us, Rocket, the Rocket family of companies is so important to the past, the recent past here in the Detroit area, and certainly the future. So it's no longer something, when we were talking about GameStop, it was like this company that we really didn't have a connection to. Rocket is certainly different than that. I was just thinking the same thing. This could impact a lot of things here in the Detroit area.
Yeah, according to Market Watch, it is the 9th most shorted stock. And so we should ask the question, why are the smart people, supposedly smart people, betting against them? And you know what? We'll ask that of David Sowerby. He's going to be coming up next. He's got some interesting insights into Warren Buffett's annual report. And we'll also ask him about Rocket and this whole phenomenon with, as you say, the day traders. That's next on the Paul W. Smith Show. Let's check in first with Dana Clark, WJR Traffic First.
This report is sponsored by Exergen. Accuracy matters. Receive a...
All right, Guy, you got the market minute billboard there?
I'm waiting with bated breath.
Beautiful. All right. I'm going to give you back the traffic here.
And it's right out of weather, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
.com.
Looking at construction work popping up, Guy, in West Bloomfield along Pontiac Trail eastbound right before Haggerty. A lane restriction in place until further notice. As for work on a lift station. 30-minute delay across the Blue Water Bridge, of course, just for trucks traveling westbound between Canada and the U.S. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Primetime Testing Laboratory. For over 20 years, they have been offering complete automotive testing services, guaranteeing on-time delivery and accurate result reporting to OEMs, Tier 1 and Tier 2 suppliers. For your next automotive project, get a free quote at primetimetestinglab.com. That's primetimetestinglab.com.
Milder weather returning briefly like today, and then colder again toward the end of the week. We'll see a few clouds this morning, otherwise clear. Mostly sunny to partly cloudy this afternoon. High 52. Tonight, clear, 28. Suburbs a little bit cooler. Tomorrow, clouds, sun, cooler, upper 30s. Friday, sunshine in the mid-40s. From the Weather Channel, meteorologist Ray Stidgecom, News Talk 760 WJR.
This week's IHS Market Minute with Stephanie Brindley is brought to you by Dana. Dana, people finding a better way.
In 2020, we saw increased emphasis on both hybrid electric and battery electric vehicles, leading to hybrid electric vehicle market share increasing from 3% in 2019 to 3.7%.
When we do business speak with Jeff Sloan, is there a tagline for that as well? Was there a lead-in?
I'm sorry, Guy. Were you talking to me?
Yes, sir. In the lead-in to Jeff Sloan, which I think is at 7-Eleven, is there a reader into that as well? There was on Monday, and I'm just curious.
The only thing, and you're muted.
It's only on Mondays.
Yeah, all I have here.
Monday. No.
By the way, this is a 15-page instructional packet for the morning show here. I haven't done this much reading since college.
Courtesy of Brian Morton.
Yeah, it's very thorough, though.
I guess we're such simpletons on my show that we just don't need that book.
Yeah. All this is it's just your normal introduction to him.
Oh, okay. No, it's just Monday that's sponsored. So,
yeah.
The other thing is,
I'm going to call up Sowerby. 5620 will be our out here. 5620.
Okay. And this is some backstage business for our viewers, but Guy, so moving forward for a little bit, we are going to have to, at the end of the show, have you redo the opens and closes on the interviews that we decide to post. So we're going to only post 2 to 3 interviews per day. There is a a new decision that no music can be on the podcasts that are posted. It's a licensing issue.
Oh, Lord.
So just so you know, for the couple of days until we can resolve it and maybe have interviews recorded separately with no music on them. They're working on that for us. We're going to have all shows when they post make it so that we don't have any music on the front and the back. You know how we have.
So at the end of the show today, you want me to basically just go back to the beginning and redo the lead-ins to each guest?
Well, we're going to make it easy.
Or the three that you want.
Yeah, we're going to just do 2 or 3 just to get going. Eventually, obviously we'll figure this out, and but for Mike's purposes, we'll give Mike a little. It'll be.
And for our show, Guy, this really won't be a factor because we don't do it on StreamYard. Long story short, there's different
ways
things you can do. Right, exactly. So for our show, when you're on the Access, it won't really affect anything because we can record without music on Access.
And I think we can too, because Paul's only on StreamYard for the first 45 minutes, right, Mike?
Correct. Yeah, once you're out of StreamYard, it gets a little easier.
So.
Okay.
But just for now, I want to make sure we still post a little bit. So if you don't mind. The other thing is it's going to be Runstad at 7:48, not Chamberlain. Chamberlain did get back to me last night. Would love to have done it, but he's in meetings all day today.
Chamberlain was the guy from Jerry Ford U of M. Boy, he would have been good. That's too bad.
Yeah.
I just only because I would like to take it out of the partisan thing.
Yes, I know.
And just get.
Well, maybe he can do. We'll see if he can do it tomorrow.
Yeah, just a more academic look at these agreements, and I thought his comments were just as strong as maybe what you would get from a partisan. They just don't have that.
That's why I picked.
And I love Jim Runstad, and
good.
I think he's.
Sowerby's ready to go.
Okay.
35 seconds away.
All right, I'll be back.
Okay.
866 KOLENDER.
Hi, I'm Macomb County Executive Mark Hackle. If you're a Macomb County resident age 60 and over and are looking to get the COVID-19 vaccine, I encourage you to contact SMART to get registered. The Macomb County Health Department has teamed up with SMART to better serve our seniors, and we will provide a ride for those who need it. If you're a resident 60 years of age and over, or know someone who is, please call 586-421-6579 or simply visit macombgov.org.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
You remember the old ad, when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen? E.F. Hutton isn't around anymore, but there is an individual who, when he speaks, ears get a lot bigger and are highly tuned, and that is Warren Buffett, the impresario that oversees the Berkshire Hathaway massive holding company. And he has spoken with his annual report. Our good friend David Sowerby from Ancora Advisors, the managing director and portfolio manager there, on the other end of our line today, because it's a little like Moses coming down from the mount, David.
It usually is, Guy, both for the Buffett annual letter that comes out in March, as well as when Berkshire Hathaway has their annual meeting coming up in May. Both are seminal events for any investor who pays heed to how wealth is accumulated, and that's thoughtfully and patiently, but over the long term.
So you were looking at his annual report, and what I thought was interesting, and this is what smart people do. You don't just look at what he said, you look at what they're not talking about and what they're not saying, and that's what impressed you the most about his message this year. What topic did he seem to be avoiding?
Very little, if anything, on the big macro picture, whether it's pandemics or political unrest or fiscal and monetary stimulus. He spent very little on the macro. The only macro
But that's so important. I mean, that is the issue.
Well, it can be, and he did have one macro insight. He simply said that given the low interest rates, fixed income or bond investors are going to have a tough road, given just take a 10-year U.S. Treasury at 1.4%. Take away inflation, and if you're taxed on it, take that away, and your return is is negative. For the most part, Buffett did his duty, and I think he talked about the individual companies. That's, to me, as a portfolio manager and somebody who manages his own mutual fund, it always comes down to stock selection. I want to know what the macro is doing. That's important, but ultimately, it's individual stock picking based on the right fundamentals and the right valuation that I think is going to be the key for success.
Were there any indicators from what he was talking about which sectors are going to be the hot sectors or things that we ought to be looking at over the next 12 months for our own portfolios?
I think one thing was very telling watching Buffett over the years is a number of years ago he would say, I don't own much technology because I simply don't understand it. And here we are today where over the last 4 or 5 years he's accumulated a significant position in Apple Computer. And you can certainly call Apple half technology company, half consumer company. So I think his evolution that he sees what's going on in tech, particularly as it relates to consumer demand, is important because of how much he owns of Apple, which is he owns 5.5% of the outstanding shares of the company. That's a big bite.
So what was your biggest takeaway through your much more informed, seasoned eyes than mine?
I think that patient capital wins, and I think that speaks to any investor for how long you're willing to own a stock based on the investment thesis, that it could be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, or longer. That's important. Second, always pay heed to valuation. It's not just, is this a good company and are they a winning edge? Technology is another good example. But are you getting it for the right price? And Buffett is a heroic long-term value investor. Value investors have had a tough go of it over the last 10 years, but it has turned in the value investors' favor. I tilt more to the value side because I think I want to buy companies at the right price for the right cash flow. That was important. And he just went through the history of how he's come to these companies over the years, and it goes back to what's the cash flow, what's the return on capital, what's the price I'm paying for it.
I want to get your take on what we saw yesterday happening with Rocket Mortgage because they're so important to what's happening downtown. Obviously, they had their big IPO, and the stock price settled in a little south of 25. Yesterday, a 70% gain based on no news at all. Apparently, it is in the top 10 for short sellers. What does that say about Rocket's future? What do we draw from that in terms of whether or not we should be concerned? And what do you think about the day traders getting involved in Rocket? That kind of volatility.
Sure. First, to Rocket as the company. It's on the winning edge. It's a traditional mortgage originator, but it's also what we call a fintech company. It's got more technology than most finance companies. And that's been Rocket's issue, is how is it valued? Is it valued like a traditional bank stock? Or is it valued more like a financial technology company? And the truth is going to be somewhere in between. I think that's what's created some of the short interest or shorts in the stock, that they thought the stock was overvalued after the initial IPO. Nevertheless, out of the last earnings season, Rocket had a very solid earnings season. They instituted a one-time special dividend, good for the shareholder who's long, not short the stock. And then you just saw what happened yesterday, which is, I think it's a combination of the shorts had a cover as investors were coming in, and I think the investors were coming in were not just retail investors, but they could very well have been more the institutional, high-frequency hedge fund traders who see opportunity here. And the net result was shorts had a cover, and the stock had a significant pop yesterday.
Do we know what that means for Rocket going forward? Because we know it's a favorite locally for folks to put into their portfolios, at least for those of us that want to make Michigan and Detroit-specific investments. Should we fasten our seatbelts?
Guy, yesterday is more about trading. Unlike Buffett, it's much less about investing. Rocket's going to do just fine as long as it continues to done what it's done over the last several years, which is be a significant mortgage originator who recognizes that technology is the way to go, and it gets valued potentially more like one of those fintech companies.
All right, David Sowerby, appreciate it so much, and thank you for helping explain Moses to us as we do every year. Take care, my friend.
My pleasure. Thank you, Guy.
When we come back, the Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson completing 250 risk assessment audits and other forms of lookbacks at the election. We'll find out what she found, and for you skeptics out there, we'll ask whether or not your skepticism is justified. We'll get to that next on the Paul W. Smith Show right after we check in with Dana Clark, WJR Traffic.
Roadways are still looking pretty good out there, Guy. 15-minute delay now just for trucks across the Blue Water Bridge westbound between Canada and the U.S. Construction work in place along Pontiac Trail eastbound right before Haggerty. That project just in place today until further notice for work on a lift station. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Sleep Solutions. Suffering with sleep apnea, you deserve a restful night's sleep. Sleep Solutions is your local easy solution. Don't wait to replace that old mask, tubing, and headgear. Call Sleep Solutions Home Medical, 877-SLEEP-MI, or visit sleepsolutionsinc.com. Warmer today, some clouds, some sun, starting off with sunshine, ending with more clouds this afternoon, a high 53 tonight. Partly to mostly cloudy skies, your low 28. We dip back into the 30s on Thursday, clouds early, then more sunshine in the afternoon, a high of 36. Clear skies, now 29 degrees. I'm Dana Clark, WJR News with Marie Osborne in 2 minutes.
Hey folks, four-time Stanley Cup champion Darren McCarty here, and you've been hearing me talk a lot about the benefits of high-dose laser therapy for pain-free life centers. Now, let's be serious. I want to take a moment to talk to you about all the side effects. Oh, that's right. There are no side effects. So why are people still taking drugs, getting injections, and having unnecessary surgeries? Why are you? Time to take control of your life and your pain. Call Pain Free Life Centers today. 248-879-1100. No other center has experience or successful outcomes to help relieve you of your pain. I'm urging you. No, I'm begging you. Give Pain Free Life Centers the opportunity to give you a better quality of life. They're so confident in what they do. Your consultation and first treatment are free. You have nothing to lose but your pain. So what are you waiting for? Call today, 248-879-1100, or visit painfreelifecenters.com. Tell them DMAX sent you.
It was very important to feel like a company valued me and my family's time, specifically helping get the timeshare company off of our backs.
Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, and all the ways you can. I'm Chuck McDowell, CEO and founder of Wesley Financial Group. I first heard that John Wesley quote when I was 11 years old in Sunday school. I even have his words displayed at all of our offices to give our employees the same purpose I have when fighting to get clients out of a fraudulent timeshare.
If you were not satisfied with other companies, look directly to Wesley Financial and they will help you.
I promise we'll do all the good we can every single day. That's why I guarantee we will cancel your timeshare or you'll pay nothing.
Call for your free information kit. 800-743-8989. 800-743-8989. 800-743-8989.
WJR Detroit and WDVD HD2 Detroit. 760 WJR, where Detroit comes to talk.
Governor Whitmer announcing a loosening of restrictions for restaurants, nursing homes, gyms, and recreational facilities. Most pronounced is a doubling of the capacity of restaurants now from 25 to 50%.
All of these re-engagements will enable Michiganders to enjoy more of life's simplest pleasures that have been disrupted over the past year.
Hey, Michael, have you still got me, and do I sound okay?
Yes and yes.
Okay. My computer went to sleep.
Oh, yeah.
With Lucy, I always go in and make sure that it's not...
Right. Yeah, StreamYard seems a little bit more accommodating to that because mine goes to sleep a lot. Even though I changed the setting.
So Jocelyn's next. You're all good with that. I sent the...
Yeah,
Her audit story.
Obviously we can talk about the audits, exactly what they are, how deep they go. Also the, and we got to have her confront the 800-pound gorilla, which is there are still people that just don't believe this. She's also doing some media shaming of those that are raising questions about it, and I think they have every right to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want to get her take on this H.R. 1 bill that is bouncing around Congress right now. It was their lead bill coming out of the gate. And there are two elements to it. First of all, what business does the federal government have telling states how to run their elections?
Mm-hmm.
Just as a matter of constitutional separation.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, two of the elements, one of them says that if the absentee ballot is, first of all, it would make no excuses absentee voting the norm nationwide, not even giving states a choice. We did this as a ballot question. We've taken this on ourselves. That's fine. It's the will of the people. But this is the federal government telling you, you must do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's as if we're to say, if you like the 2020 election and the mess that it was, guess what? Let's make that permanent.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's that. And then there's also the, this whole notion of that if you've got an AV ballot that arrives 10 days after the election, but is still postmarked by the day of the election, it can still be counted. So in close races, you still have this scenario where, and that doesn't raise the level of confidence is when you've got to wait for the result in an election 10 days, because people ask the question, how many ballots came in under the transom in that time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely an issue. Shouldn't they have a deadline where, they got to be there by the day of the election?
Well, 10, even, I think, it's no different than being in line before 8 o'clock.
Right. I think they got to be there the day of the election.
Yeah.
They just do.
And which means you just train people, you mail it by
Right.
God a week in advance. If this is the way you want to do it, you want that level of convenience. And the other thing is, and this is crazy.
Take it there, or do it mail it 2 weeks in advance. As a voter, that you have to have it in that day. Kind of like going to the polls. You got to be there by 8 o'clock. What's the big deal? Waiting for a week or two, or even a couple of days, to me, sets things up for where we are with all these people questioning it. It just does.
It just any length of time that you have allows those that want to generate a conspiracy, it gives them the window of opportunity to do it.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that this does,
good to go.
Okay. The other thing that it does is it says you may not, Mr. Clerk, you may not require someone to show you identification or to prove identification before we send you an AV ballot. So if someone shows up at the clerk's office says, I want an AV ballot, they don't have to show you that they are who they say they are.
What?
That's in H.R. 1.
That's silly, too. You have to show me who you are. You want a ballot? Show me who you are. No big deal.
Yeah. And why would you, and especially...
Again, we're looking for transparency here. Come on.
Exactly. And for security conscious states that may want to, and look, I don't like some of the stuff that's being proposed in red states about raising the bar even higher.
Yeah.
But
just common sense.
There's a sweet spot there that we got to find, and asking for someone's identification before you send them a ballot, I don't think is unreasonable.
Whenever you need them. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Confidence comes with every card. To learn more, visit bcbsm.com/seniorcare.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
I think we can safely say, and while we don't find a lot of agreement about the election, I think we can say safely that it was unlike any election that we've ever had before in terms of the pandemic, in terms of the strife afterwards, even extending into January 6th and beyond. The Secretary of State's office has included the all-important look back at the election, the technical stuff, to make sure that the process was proper. Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson joining us live after completing 250 audits. Madam Secretary, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So 250 audits. Define audit for me, especially these risk-limiting audits for those of us that are lay people. How deep a dive do you make, and does it include looking at signature verification?
It does. And essentially what it does is look at the paper ballots themselves, the machines that counted them, and affirm that the ballots were accurately counted by the machines. And then it also looks at the procedures of clerks to make sure those procedures were properly followed and that only valid ballots were counted. So that's why we did essentially so many at the state and local level, and in all, more than 1,300 Republican, Democrat, and nonpartisan clerks participated in these, along with the State Bureau of Elections. So it was a more comprehensive set of audits than we've ever done in our state's history. As you mentioned, over 250. And the good news is they really affirmed the accuracy of the election and that all procedures were followed and cleared up any confusion or lack of information, perhaps, about different procedures that happened on the local level. Those were all explained for the most part, and I'm hopeful now that with this information we can move forward.
Well, that's easier said than done. And let me have you speak to the skeptics out there who say, okay, in Wayne County and in the city of Detroit, for instance, we had Democrat clerks looking at a process where a Democrat won. Was there Republican oversight in these audits? Were there nonpartisans? Tell me who was watching the auditors to make sure to give some cover to those that say, look, I think this is partisan from the get-go.
Yeah, that's such an important question. I mean, the auditors in Detroit, and I'll talk about who they were and then what they found. The auditors in Detroit were actually clerks and officials from other places who come in and help explain unexplained clerical errors, for example, which was the issue with the city's absentee counting board. So you have a lot of eyes on the process, as an audit typically does. And in addition to that, what they found or explained was 83% of the out-of-balance precincts, which were an issue in the Wayne County canvassing discussion. They actually explained 83% of the city's absentee counting boards, which was up from 27% in November. And what they found were two things. One, the net number of ballots that were out of balance was actually just 17. And that's less than 1/100 of 1% of the 174,000 ballots that were cast in Detroit's election. And then they secondly found that the reason why in the fall there was this lack of clarity around these out of balance precincts was because there was not enough time or people to actually talk to the election workers and examine the out of balance precincts and actually find explanations for them. Okay. And once they did that, they were actually able to explain it and find again that the results were accurate.
Just because we can explain them, though, does that mean that we should tolerate them?
Well, no, actually, that's a really important point as well. And that's why I've asked the legislature to give our local canvassers more time and resources to complete the canvass, because that's essentially what happened here. They ran out of time. And that came up at the Wayne County Board of Canvassers meeting in the fall. They said, we need more time. We didn't get to look at all of the unexplained out of balances or imbalances. So, yes, I think there is work we can do to change this moving forward. And that means both giving our local clerks more time and resources to complete the canvass, and even allowing audits to begin prior to state certification. I
think that is so key, Jocelyn, because the idea of auditing after the canvass and after certification just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to the guy in the cheap seats like me.
And the issue is, under state law, the auditors can't access the materials they need to do the audit until after. So that's another thing I've asked the state legislature to change, so that, again, we can provide this sort of information and clarity sooner.
Let me ask you about what's happening with H.R. 1 in Congress. It is a vast rewrite of election law and reform. I will say that, let's say that it's well-intentioned. Fine. Does the federal government have any business telling you or local clerks how they should run their elections? Is this a federal and constitutional overstep?
Well, it's a balance, and it's a delicate one. I think, I'll say two things. One, you're right. States do run the elections, and in Michigan, local governments and local clerks really are at the front lines of administering. But the federal government does have a long history of both providing funding and standards for states to follow. And so that partnership is key. The elements of HR1 that I think are notable is that it's a lot of codification of what we already have in Michigan. No reason absentee voting, for example, automatic voter registration, independent citizens redistricting commission. So, and I'm going to be talking to folks in the Senate about this. If we can, essentially just affirm and support through funding our work in Michigan, I think that's, and they can set standards for other states so that they become more like Michigan. But Michigan's elections, a lot of which our policies are part of this federal package, are actually going quite well thanks to the voters who amended our state constitution to create all these rights.
Well, except one of the things that it does is it bans local clerks from asking for identification verification from someone requesting an absentee ballot. Is that a good thing? That seems.
Yeah, I think the signature verification for absentee ballots is critical, and in my view, you need to increase the support for clerks to make sure that signature verification, not just for the ballots, but for the applications as well, that identity verification is that they have the resources and support they need to do that accurately. That's a key component of allowing absentee voting.
Well, you can exhale now, Jocelyn Benson, after 250 audits and probably the most exhaustive and frustrating election season that you will ever administer. We look forward to those reforms, and let's have a good conversation about that going forward, about striking the right balance between security and accessibility.
Exactly, I agree. All right, thanks, Guy. I appreciate it.
We appreciate you as well. Jocelyn Benson, Secretary of State. Time for WJR's Business Beat. Here's Jeff Sloan.
Good morning, Guy. If you ask many what one of the most significant bellwethers is for life returning to normal, well, it's returning to the office. And yet, even so, many are still reluctant to return or don't want to return at all. In fact, a new Eagle Hill consulting report indicates that 42% say they want their employee to delay reopening offices and or a return to normal working environment until COVID-19 vaccines are readily available to all adults. And with respect to vaccination, over half of those polled say employers should offer incentives for employees to become vaccinated. And even more of those polled felt that vaccination should be required for a return to work. Melissa Jezior, president and CEO of Eagle Hill Consulting, says this: our research shows many employees are reluctant to return to the workplace until vaccines are more prevalent. And more than half say financial or paid time off incentives could encourage vaccinations. We also found that employees remain split on employer vaccination requirements, but do want employers to require safe practices in the workplace nevertheless. All of this means employers must engage with employees at a deep level to understand their views and align decisions with employee preferences. There will not be a one-size-fits-all approach, and it isn't enough to just announce plans. You must engage your team and get their buy-in. Good advice, just in time, as companies begin to lay out their plans to return to work soon. I'm Jeff Sloan, founder and CEO of StartupNation.com, and that's today's Business Beat on the great voice of the Great Lakes, WJR.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International. For kids in poverty around the world, things are still desperate. Join Compassion International with your one-time $40 gift to provide a COVID relief kit to a family in poverty. Text the word GIVE to 83393. That's GIVE to 83393.
Still seeing a 15-minute delay for trucks across the Blue Water Bridge westbound between Canada and the U.S. Pontiac Trail eastbound right before Haggerty, that construction project, those lane restrictions have already been...
All right, Mike Parsons, I'm drinking coffee now, and there's nothing you can do to stop me.
The Weather Panel sponsored by the National Electrical Contractors Association, NECA. With the expertise and skill of NECA signatory contractors to work with their commercial, public, industrial, and residential construction projects, NECA contractors like Matic Electric are powering Michigan's future project.
So, I can hear that when you move your mic. Is that mic thing kind of loose on you, Guy?
No, obviously where it's pushed, it gets in the way. If I drink coffee while I'm on the air, it actually dips the mic into the coffee, which doesn't seem like a very good thing to me.
Yeah, you know what? This one that I have the same thing, I think. So what I do is I go like that, and then I go. You need a Yeti, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I probably do, but then I would slurp. But I told Michael, you don't want to see me if I haven't been drinking coffee. So
Oh no, you
I
have
will
to have your coffee.
I will just try to do it. In
That's
break.
okay. I'm far enough away. I'm not afraid.
So I watched a little bit of that hearing yesterday. It was really interesting. Christopher Wray from the FBI he was fascinating, and he didn't back down. You know how those hearings go. He got a lot of tough questions, and he didn't flinch. He just was kind of like, nope, this is what this was. This is what happened. This is what we know.
I've lost a lot of respect from Chuck Grassley, who seems to want to continue to promote the Antifa part of this. Yes, there were Antifa people there. There always are when the Proud Boys are there. They follow each other around. But that doesn't mean of the 280 people that were arrested actually inside the Capitol, that the people doing the damage, that any of them were, folks are going to take one or two and try to, blow that up out of proportion. It's just, it was really disappointing to hear him do that, and Senator Johnson as well.
Yeah, he was doing it. And then the other one was Ted Cruz was combining the whole year of violence.
Yeah.
So the hearing was about the 6th, and Cruz went into this.
Let's distract. Let me give you a shiny object over here, because we really don't want to look at what we're talking about or what we ought to be talking about. And, they ought to be talking about both. There are
absolutely.
two kinds of domestic extremism at work here.
And that's what Ray said yesterday, by the way.
Yeah.
He did say that.
Yeah, and we can get into that with Rachel. I guess the other thing is this idea of this email that went out. He's saying it was more than just one email, right? That it was actually 3 different forms of warning that went out from the FBI on January 5th. But he said, we can't say whether it's an aspirational comment, an actual plan. It's about filtering it, about what's real and it's what is just chatter and garbage.
All right, we're 25 away here. No Rachel Sutherland yet.
Oh, we need to find her. Let me go backstage and Mike, you may be talking to Guy here. Let me call them and see what's going on.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, Guy. The signal of Rachel Sutherland being there will be this.
Okay. That means I've got to watch you.
Tap dance, yeah. Here we come.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
We're going to be connecting with Rachel Sutherland, our correspondent on Capitol Hill for Fox News and WJR contributor. I wanted to tell you the one thing regarding Capitol Hill that came out of the Whitmer briefing yesterday, and that is she didn't confirm that our National Guard troops were served poor food. But she did confirm that she was concerned enough about the report she was hearing from a number of sources that she did send the Adjutant General to D.C. Paul Rogers went to D.C. to check it out, and she is taking action as a result. Cut 3, please, Mike.
It is my understanding that the quality of the food has dramatically improved. Doesn't mean that it's excusable that we had to take these actions to get to this point, but that is my understanding. Now, this deployment is scheduled to come to a close on March 12th. I do not have any intention of agreeing to an extension of this deployment. I think that our brave men and women who serve in the Guard have been called on in unprecedented ways over the last 12 months, whether it is evacuating people in Midland in a 500-year flooding event, or testing for COVID for people across the state in all sorts of places like our nursing homes and in our prisons, to going to Washington, D.C. when our nation's security is a concern with a lot of civil unrest. So they are consummate professionals who take time away from family. It's an incredible sacrifice, and we owe them respect and support. And this is something that I take very seriously.
Michael, I'm glad she stepped up like that. I wish she had been a little bit more clear and maybe a little bit more demonstrative about whether or not they were actually served bad food. She kind of hints that there was a problem. Then we've heard reports that it was, according to the Pentagon, only 0.01% of meals that were an issue. I don't know that I accept that either, but she kind of didn't come out and say what they found.
No, and what is it about us treating the National Guard like crap lately? I mean, you've got when they were at the Capitol for the after the insurrection, they were forced to sleep in a parking structure. I have to be honest, Guy. This is the first I've heard about this story. I would think it'd be a bigger one.
Well, and it's come from a number of sources, and that's what makes me believe that it was a real problem. And, there's a real question now. Today, I should say tomorrow, March 4th, is supposed to be, according to the QAnon people, the true inauguration day for Donald Trump. And so they've got the FBI on alert, they've got Capitol Police on alert, and I assume that the National Guard should be on alert. I would hope that we had learned something from January. But you're right, and I just wish the governor would be a little bit more clear about this and say, what did you find regarding our troops, and what kind of incidents were you able to confirm through Paul Rogers? I do like the fact that she's saying, look, when this deployment ends March 12th, I'm not going to reauthorize.
Yeah, and I mean, listening to that, it sounds like she's saying that it happened without actually saying it happened.
Right. Again, it's up to interpretation, and she's been doing a lot of that lately, and I just wish her messaging, it's like she doesn't want to criticize the Pentagon, because then you might be criticizing President Biden and the Biden administration. So, hey, it's okay to do that. You're acting on behalf of our troops that are deployed there. So it's infuriating. Is that the high sign, Mike? Okay, good. Let's get to Rachel Sutherland, our Fox correspondent and WJR contributor on Capitol Hill, to talk about Chris Wray's testimony, the FBI director's testimony before Senate Judiciary yesterday. Hey there, Rachel.
Hey, good morning. The real question is from yesterday is who got the memo talking about that Norfolk warning that went out the night before the riot at the Capitol. There's been folks at D.C. Police, Capitol Police saying they didn't get it. And interestingly, FBI Director Christopher Wray says he didn't see it until days after January 6th. So obviously some intelligence breakdowns, although he assures members of Congress that law enforcement partners were notified within like an hour or so in 3 different ways, through an email, through verbal warning at D.C. campus. So it's just kind of a mystery why there were such lapses in communication.
It really is, and the finger-pointing that's been going on, Rachel, really leaves you wondering who to believe. But I thought that Senator Klobuchar asked a really good question, which is, okay, you sent this email, maybe there was some face-to-face. What level of urgency did you transmit? And he kind of waffled a little on that, saying they really weren't sure what this was because it was still unverified intelligence.
That's right. He says unverified, uncorroborated. He said in a perfect world that they would have had more time to verify that intelligence. It was very raw intelligence. And so I would imagine, I'm not an intel expert, but when something's unverified, perhaps it doesn't get the attention that maybe, okay, we know this is real, this is verified, shore up your resources. This was raw. So it could be that. But it just seems like with the Capitol riot and the investigation, and by the way, there's another hearing today, it's almost like there's just pieces of a puzzle, and we only have, a third of them right now, and there's a lot of gaping holes as to how this all came down. They say they've made about 270 arrests, but with the death of Officer Brian Sicknick, there's been no arrest because there's been no release of cause of death, and it's been almost 2 months.
2 things I want to get to here really quickly, and that is March 4th is taking on some added significance, apparently on the QAnon chatter, that they believe that's the true inauguration day, and they are apparently inflamed about it. How high is security? How seriously are security officials taking that? And how does that relate to what the FBI and Capitol Police will be doing tomorrow?
Well, we'll probably hear a lot about that at today's hearing. From what I understand, Capitol Police have beefed up security. They're at the Capitol ahead of tomorrow. As far as exactly what they're doing, I mean, they already have this, non-scalable fence because it's got razor wire on it. So they are beefing up security. But again, the exact level of security, I don't have the details about. And certainly watch for that to come up at the hearing today.
And we should point out that in spite of Chuck Grassley trying to perpetuate the notion that Antifa was behind the January 6th troubles, Chris Wray pushed back very hard on that.
He did. He said that there is no evidence that what he called fake Trump supporters organizing this, that instead it was, agitators. He described them as white supremacists and said it's a growing problem. So, he did push back on that. And at this point, he said that they are looking, that perhaps there might have been some kind of Antifa type of connection. But because at this point, there's no evidence of that.
Rachel, thank you so much. We appreciate your reporting there on Capitol Hill. We should also point out that Director Wray said that political extremism, domestic extremism, huge problem in the United States, and it comes from both ends of the political spectrum. Let's get to Dana Clark, WJR Traffic First. Back with more on the Paul W. Smith Show. Stay with us.
This report is sponsored by Exergen. Accuracy matters. Earn a $5 rebate by trading up any non-contact thermometer toward an Exergen purchased at any retailer. Accuracy matters. An Exergen temporal artery
Michael,
thermometers are backed by more
wasn't
than
sure
80
what that
published
hand
peer
gesture was. It looked like you were giving me a delay of game call. I wasn't sure what that was.
I was trying. Well, because I was on the faraway shot. I was trying to be more demonstrable.
I knew we were already in delay of game.
Right. Should we call an ambulance for Mike? Is he okay?
Yes.
Because I forgot I wasn't right here up in your face, so I had to.
Right. No.
Sure.
I was watching for that, and then you changed your nonverbal signaling on me.
Well, it was the same one. I just added emotion.
Well, I didn't know if you were a train conductor blowing a whistle or if you were a British person flushing the toilet. I wasn't.
No, there was a truck driving by. I was trying to get it to honk its horn. I guess it would have sounded fine if I would just said on air Rachel Sutherland's here, but I don't know.
I was trying to figure out how he was going to talk to you and answer the phone. I'm
yeah.
Like, ooh.
Well, luckily, I kind of tap danced when I tried getting her on the phone as soon as possible too.
Well, this is why, Michael, I cut those bites that we think we're never going to use. It's just for that emergency.
Sounded good, yeah.
Yeah, and I got we had a nice little conversation about that, which I thought was interesting. But again, doggone it, she doesn't answer a question anymore. She just sidesteps things and then kind of backs into it. And that was yet another example of it.
Yeah. You're right.
Oh, you're talking about the governor of the National Guard, not Rachel Sutherland.
By the way, Dorothy, you're right. I'll try a straw tomorrow.
And if you use a straw, won't it go like this?
I think I can maybe be a little bit more. I'll try.
You'll just have to make sure that your coffee never gets that empty. Get one of those giant big gulp mugs from.
Like this. You got to have a Yeti. You just kind of go like this. Gentle.
Can I get something off my chest? Since when did McDonald's start tossing a huge glob of whipped cream on the top of every one of their shakes? Since when does a shake have to have whipped cream on it?
Since when is it bad to have whipped cream on a shake?
I was going to say.
Let's think about that for a minute.
Most people are like, I need more whipped cream.
Right. Who complains about whipped cream on anything, guy?
What is that, 500 calories you're adding to my already guilty pleasure?
Yeah. Well, I guess
You're already in trouble drinking a shake. Come on.
I was going to say, I guess they don't assume someone ordering a milkshake with whipped cream's a health nut.
Yeah. It's true. It's
true.
You
know what the real problem is with fast food is when they hand you the cup and there's pop all over the side and they don't wipe it. That's my new pet peeve.
Yeah, I'm with you.
The real issue is, when's the last time you had a milkshake at McDonald's? Let's get into that.
Oh, that's like our new thing going up north.
Oh,
if I could still have dairy,
up.
I would. Yeah, they're really good. I miss the McDonald's milkshake.
Heaven.
So wait, you have a milkshake and fries, or
thanks, Mark. Take care.
And a burger. Is this a burger and a milkshake situation or just a milkshake?
So we discovered something on the way up, and I can't remember what exit it's on now. We went to a Hardee's at a truck stop. Their burger, flat out the best road burger I think out there. And I like Rallies. I also like the Big Buford. But that was a really good burger. I was surprised because the Hardee's that used to be next to Channel 7 was a gut bomb. It was awful.
Yeah, I love Hardee's. They kind of started making a comeback around here.
Had Hardee's.
Yeah. Well, they were bought by the Wendy's. I think they're owned by the same company that owns Wendy's.
Oh, okay.
Ed told me that McDonald's has a new chicken sandwich coming.
I've tried them both.
And
I still like the McChicken. I think the spicy McChicken is the best fast food chicken sandwich out there.
Are they trying to compete with chicken with the
Chick-fil-A?
other chicken place? Yeah, Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, it's very similar to Chick-fil-A. What I don't like with those big chicken sandwiches is when the grain of the chicken, like, they go different ways and you bite into the I like all my chicken grain to be going the same way.
Do you also straighten the tassels on Oriental rugs, Mike? I mean, how far does this OCD thing go?
Well, they're Asian rugs guy, and no.
Okay, excellent, and that's why put down your Dr. Seuss book guy and get woke.
No, because I'm not eating the rug, so I'm not that. I'm not that.
He just has food.
Yeah.
Particular food issues.
Yeah.
I've never thought about the grain of the chicken like that.
Yeah, it's just weird. It goes one way, then you bite into it, it goes a totally different way. It's just
tomorrow we need to have the discussion about what we do when we come out of COVID jail.
Yes.
And the one thing that I hadn't thought about till just now, because it was really interesting. I was going to talk about wanting to travel with Gail, but the other thing is our crew and our show hasn't been out to dinner in forever. And I would love to do another locked room mystery, another escape room thing with our crew, and we got Rich Lazinski involved, and it was so much fun.
I wonder if a lot of people are going to do that, like offices where people haven't been together, if they're going to get together.
Yeah, we used to do like 1 or 2 field trips a summer. We did a Tigers game one day.
That would be fun.
Yeah. So
that would be very fun.
We got great seats out in the bleachers. The only downside was I remember getting cooked that day.
Yeah, because we're sitting in left field, which that's probably why. And you know what? I don't like that you can't see the Jumbotron. I want to be sitting where you see the Jumbotron.
Yep.
Yeah, I like to see that too.
We had to do this to look up at it.
But they were cheap tickets, though, which was the important part.
Dana's information on the Tiger opener is interesting because I read that order that would only be
I believe that's Lisa.
25 people. So
the
way I read that order was in a big stadium, you weren't allowed to have anywhere near that number. So they must be getting some kind of special permission. And who are the 10,000 people that would get to go?
Season ticket holders.
You think so?
Yep.
Because how many people
Lisa's
fit
there.
in Comerica, would you say? How many people does that stadium hold? 50, 40?
I think it's like 45,000 until it goes SRO. I could be wrong about that.
No, I think that's accurate. So you think the 10,000 would be season ticket people? Like
You got to do something for your season ticket holders. Now we had one, and I can't forgive me for those of us listening, those of you listening on Facebook. One of you talked about your season tickets yesterday.
Yes,
do you know? Maybe they can tell us. Have you received anything from the Tigers about your ability to attend on opening day? And I wonder if they're going to do it by lottery or by length of ticket ownership. You know how many years you've been buying the package, or
and will you be allowed? Like, let's say you have a box. Will you be allowed in a box, or will you have to be outside?
RealLifeCenters.com.
They're going to be doing what they've done in the theaters. They're going to be dispersing people. They've got a computer program.
Now back to
that will
more
do
of the
that.
Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
Well, the governor giving us what we thought we were going to get yesterday. This announcement from her about our economy and the limitations placed upon it. Cut one.
Today, I'm going to announce additional re-engagements for bars and restaurants, nursing homes, and entertainment venues after providing a brief update on our ongoing equitable vaccine rollout.
That's the governor giving the good news to those that have all kinds of entertainment venues, banquet halls, wedding venues. The only group that seems to be truly disappointed in this is the Chamber of Commerce's, who have been asking, I think that's the proper plural, Commerce-I, who sent a letter to the governor saying, hey, we need to get office workers back in the offices. That isn't going to happen, but they are putting together a committee to study it. But again, we've been so concerned about the folks in the restaurant industry laboring at 25%. They're going to be able to double that. Lisa Walters is at one of the most magnificent pizzerias in downtown Detroit, Moot's Pizzeria and Bar. Lisa, good morning to you.
Well, good morning, guys. Thanks so much for having us.
Is the bar open yet? I get off in an hour and a half.
It's open at 11, ready for you.
Okay, because a shot and a slice isn't a bad thing when you work the early morning shift. So how much will that increase from 25% to 50% do for, if not your bottom line, at least your break-even point?
You know, it's going to help immensely. Going from 25%, that was 25 people for us. So 50, we'll take 50 people. We're very thankful we've got the carry out and delivery as well. So anything's going to help.
And what about the escalation of the curfew from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m.? I know it's just an hour, but it's an hour that's really on the tail end of your sweet spot for a lot of, late diners.
It truly is. At the weekend, it will definitely help on the weekends. During the week, not so much for us, but the weekend is going to make a huge difference.
Well, I've got you here. I wanted to ask you about this bill that Representative Ryan Berman has put out there that would increase closing time from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. It would still be up to the local communities whether or not to allow it. But would that be helpful to you, especially in a downtown location where, you get a lot of late-nighters?
You bet that would help. We've also got our carry-out and slice side of the business, and prior to all of this, we were open until 3 a.m., so that wouldn't be unusual for us to see the 4 a.m. crowd coming through. So we'll definitely embrace anything.
If you could have the governor's ear on this, what would you tell her about the importance now in going from 50% to 75% if the caseload continues to be as low as it is now, which is, we're in a pre-October zone now?
If I had the governor's ear, I don't envy her position by any means. But if I had her ear, I would definitely encourage that, for her to let us open up to the 75 at least. People want to be out there. You can tell the people that want to be there are there. The people that are still a little skeptical, they're the ones doing the carry out, the delivery.
Right.
So I think that's huge.
Look at this long term. What kind of long-term consequences or long-term structural changes do you think are going to be happening in your industry? Do you think that people will still want to see more spacing between tables regardless of the level of the pandemic? And do you think your carry-out business will continue to be strong post-COVID?
Absolutely. I think everyone is kind of getting used to the separation. Outdoor dining through the winter is definitely going to be here to stay. And I really do believe the carry-out delivery is going to be, it's here to stay. There's no question. That's definitely what carried us through, and it's a good 50 to 60% of our business now. So that's made a huge impact on us.
Something that's concerned me is that downtown and midtown had so much momentum in terms of retail and entertainment going into this pandemic. How much has this disrupted that momentum, and how many colleagues have you lost along the way who may not be coming back? And is that considered just part of normal shakeout, or are we seeing a stalling of that momentum, do you think, once we come back full?
I do see it's definitely going to be stalled a bit, I think, for a time. Again, everybody wants to feel comfortable. They want to know it's safe for them to come out. They want to know the restaurants and all the industries are making the changes to make them feel safe. So I think as they slowly come back and feel the impact in their businesses, what changes have been made there, then they're going to slowly begin to come out. But you're right, it's going to be stalled for a bit.
All right, and how much are you itching to get us back to beyond 50%? What would that mean, to go from 50 to 75 and back to 100?
Oh, you have no idea. You have no idea how bad we're itching for that to happen. I mean, again, like you said, we're a new restaurant, so we were just open a year, and then all of this happened. So the momentum that we felt was unbelievable. And so to have that totally, completely shut down, we cannot wait. We cannot wait.
Well, I can tell you, we've been discussing amongst ourselves what we want to do once we're all let out of COVID jail. And I want to go with my team from my show on just a downtown pub/pizzeria/restaurant crawl and hit as many places as we can to spread the wealth once we get out of this mess, because it'd be fun to do and it'd be helpful. And we just can't wish anything but the best for you folks.
Thank you so much. You know, the support of the community through the carry-out delivery side through all of this, and our employees, I can't say enough about them as well. We've got a great team. And we can't wait to welcome you guys back.
Well, and we can't wait to come back. And you know, we're planning for that now. I can tell you that. Thanks so much. Lisa Walters, remember Moots Pizzeria downtown, one of the new additions. It's spectacular. And one of those businesses that we want to make sure we support. Take care, Lisa, and thanks very much.
Thanks so much, guys.
Let's get to a woman who loves a good slice of pizza 24/7. Dana Clark, WJR Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lions Clubs International.
We are Lions. We bring hope where it's needed, support causes that matter, change lives, change communities, change the world. Visit lionsclubs.org to learn more.
Oh, Guy, you know me so well. An accident in Lincoln Park has cleared 75 southbound after Outer Drive. That collision is gone. Seeing a couple of spots moving slow. 75 northbound tapping the brakes between 9 Mile and 696. Southbound 75, seeing those stop and go traffic patterns between 14 and 11 Mile. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. As we continue to face COVID-19, we're now facing flu season. So to protect us all, let's hit this virus head on. Get your flu vaccine. Learn more at michigan.gov/flu. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
The weather quickly back in the forecast. We're kind of up and down over the next few days. Some clouds this morning, a few clouds with sun this afternoon.
Michael, when you have a minute, I have a request.
Tonight will settle back to about 28. Outlying areas will be a little cooler. Tomorrow, clouds, sunshine, cooling off to the upper 30s. Friday, sunshine back into the mid-40s.
So tell me, Jim Runestad, he was a state rep first, and now he's a senator? Okay,
yeah.
And it's Jim, right? Do you call him James or Jim? I don't know him.
Jim, boy, did he light it up at that news conference yesterday that Johnson had.
He did.
Yeah, and you know what? Remind me and text me if I forget. He was also the one that was investigating the use of this encryption app on the part of the Michigan State Police.
Oh, you were all over that. Yeah.
I had a source tell me yesterday that there is strong speculation that every member of the governor's security detail had that on their phones. I shouldn't be saying this over an open mic because I've not confirmed it, but on their phones, and that she had it on her phone too.
Really? And what was the purpose of that app? What was it tracking?
It would take your text messages, and instead of sending it to the state server where it would be preserved, and then off to the recipient, it bypasses and is encrypted. Because it's encrypted, it would be encrypted. It goes through the signals servers and then is distributed through that system. So it's an end around the state servers on a state supplied cell phone. Not state owned, but state provided cell phone. And I got to tell you, there are folks in law enforcement that just thinks this stinks to high heavens.
And the purpose of that would be if you're
subpoenaed under a normal oversight situation, let's say there was a barricaded gunman situation where the state police were texting one another with what they were doing, you could do a look back and see what the orders were and where it fell apart, if it did. Normal investigations are going to be circumvented because they're using this app. And all state records are supposed to be, state communications related to business are supposed to be preserved. Now, they're saying, well, we were only using it for stuff that was personal. Well, that's a little bit like Hillary saying, I was only sending emails about my yoga lessons and grandchildren.
I mean, shouldn't
it just doesn't wash.
If you were doing something personal, shouldn't you be using your own personal phone for that?
Yeah, and I mean, I love the state police, but this was just one of those things where it's about record preservation and, again, transparency. Mm-hmm. And Runestad was he was loaded for bear. And they sent not a commander, not the colonel. They sent their public relations guy to answer their questions. It was a huge to the Oversight Committee.
Runestad is there. Our out will be 5650.
Now, my question for you, Michael, is there a way that we can do cut 4, but not all 45 seconds? Could you find, just on your own, on the fly, if you want to, what seems like a decent out? All I really want her saying is, this is a normal thing. This is a normal thing.
Okay, I'll have my...
But, it's 10, 15 seconds, anything like that.
I'll have my quick trigger finger ready. I'm warming it up. Okay, yeah, I'll just try to cut it. And it'll either sound good or we'll clip them, but it'll get the point across.
I don't care if you clip her, just as long as we can get the essence of that, because you will hear her begin to diverge into the silly zone.
Right, okay. So just her saying that that's cut, I'm sorry, you said that was cut 2 or 4?
It's cut 4.
Cut 4, okay. You going to call for it, or do you want me to play it coming in?
I'll call for it.
Okay, cool. All right, 28 seconds away.
Sportsbook app. To get started, be sure to sign up with promo code Paul W. One word. That's so they know I sent you. FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code Paul W.
21 and older and present in Michigan. First online real money wager only. Site credit is non-withdrawable and expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problems? Call 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help. Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
A lot of very pointed questions being asked about not the loan, but now 3 confidential separation agreements that were given to departing members of the Whitmer administration. There was the one that went to Director Robert Gordon, $155,000, 9 months of income given to him, even though it was classified as a voluntary separation, a voluntary resignation, raising a lot of eyebrows. One of his deputies got the same sweet deal, and so did Steve Gray, the troubled and departing member of the UIA, the Unemployment Administration. It's raising some very thorny ethical questions. This is what we heard from the governor yesterday when asked, really, is it normal to pay someone who is voluntarily resigning?
Separation agreements, to your question, are used often in the public and private sector when someone in a leadership position leaves an organization. And due to the nature of the agreement, there's not a lot more that I can say on this subject.
And isn't that convenient? We turn to Senator Jim Runestad, Republican of White Lake, joining us, one of those lawmakers on the GOP side, raising some very important questions. Senator, good morning to you.
Good morning, Guy. Glad to be on.
I want you to tackle the first line of that soundbite. These are normal in the public sector, or common in the public sector. Through your research and the people you've talked to and the reading you've done, is that true?
That is not true. They are common in the private sector. They're very unusual in the public sector. The public doesn't like these cover up, hide the trail, which is what this is precisely. And the comical part of it is when Gretchen Whitmer was a senator and Rick Snyder let his Treasury director, it was uncertain whether he resigned or was let go. I think it was kind of mutual. He ran into some personal problems.
Right.
And he got a couple of months severance, and she said, this is a golden parachute. This is outrageous. And he's being paid. And now, not a couple of months, but 9 months pay of the top paid individual and the deputy. It stinks to the high heavens. And I think her hiding out and making these comments to try to shift and misdirect is not going to work. She's in the hottest water she has ever been over her nursing home policy, and I believe that is what this is all about. She was one of 4 or 5 states that put COVID-infected patients into nursing homes with the non-infected. Anyone who knows how that works with the lack of proper ventilation means that it's going to spread throughout the facility.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened in New York, and that was what we believe happened here in Michigan. We've been trying to get to the bottom of the numbers. The numbers reported to the feds versus the state are different. We're running into many of the same situations that happen in New York.
Well, usually these things are used in those instances where you might get hit with a wrongful termination suit. So you pay the person off so that doesn't happen. That's why they're used in the private sector. But in the public sector, especially with someone like Robert Gordon, he is an at-will employee. He can be fired for absolutely nothing. They don't have to give him cause for his termination. Now, they're spinning it that this was a resignation, but that makes it even more curious, because why would you have to have a confidential separation agreement and a $155,000 payoff for someone that's leaving voluntarily?
Yeah, the people are getting wise to her maneuvers. There is no doubt that this was done because he carried a lot of insider information that she wanted bottled up.
But do you have evidence of that, Senator? I mean, you're speculating there, and I want to be careful about that because I don't want to besmirch this man's reputation either. Do we know that for a fact?
Well, he was the guy who was in charge during all of what she is now facing. And did she know that she was going to be facing this? My understanding is this was shortly after the situation blew up in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's just a whole lot of coincidental evidence. You're right. I haven't talked to him. I don't know absolutely that was the reason, but I guess from all the coincidences that are coming together, it certainly has the appearance of that.
We know that he did have some family issues. His father died this past Saturday, and that was brought up as perhaps part of an explanation. But when you see a pattern of this, and this gets back to something you and I have talked a lot about, Senator, and that is you are an advocate for sunshine laws. I respect that so much about you. This has got to be something where you've got colleagues on the other side of the aisle singing out of the same hymnal that you are. Will we see in the Senate some FOIA reform legislation that will get through this time? The House has passed it before, and it's always gone toes up in the Senate. Do you think you'll get it through this time?
I think that there's a new wind blowing through Lansing. I think there's a very good shot at that. As you know, I have always co-sponsored and voted for that legislation. I will vote for it again here. And I think that there's a will here in the Senate to start cleaning up some of this toxic mess. And so I think that there's a very good chance that can happen.
I want to just quickly get to a topic that you and I have talked about, but I don't know that the Paul W. Smith audience has done much on this, and that is the fact that members of the Michigan State Police had an encryption app on their phone that allowed them to text one another, and that those texts were not only just encrypted, but they were not logged or recorded through the state servers per normal procedure. You asked a lot of very thorny questions of the MSP. You wanted to know how many officers had this. Whether or not the governor's security detail had it, whether or not the governor had it. Do we know? Have you had answers to those questions yet?
No, we have not. We've not got those answers. We are going to be having another hearing in the budget committee that oversees MSP, and we will be asking those questions in a very pointed way. We still haven't heard from the governor as to what her view is of these policies, but basically they were using an app that not only encrypts the information, but it vanishes. That's what it is sold as. It vanishes, and there's no record of this. So they're being sued right now by some law enforcement individuals who were terminated, and they want their day in court, and they want this information that should be subject to open meetings, freedom of information. And they're being denied their day in court because of this app. This is exactly the kind of thing that the public is concerned about. And we're going to drill down and get to the bottom. How many were using this? It sounds like all the top people were using it. And how many people on down the line were doing it? How many situations have we had where individuals are interacting with the police and maybe something occurred that we need to have transparency about, and it's all gone because of this app. So it's something we're definitely going to be staying on top of.
And are we also going to ask about whether the department heads and the governor, whether the executive branch may have been doing this as well? Because obviously it circumvents the normal record-keeping mandate that we have.
Yes, we are going to, and my office is looking at putting in a bill to prevent any kind of an app that can make the information disappear, that it has to go through proper channels and be retained. And it's a little more complex. I thought it would be simple, but it's we're going to get there, but it's just how we craft it is going to take a little bit of time.
Senator Runestad, we thank you so much. We should also point out that the oversight committees, GOP-controlled in both the House and the Senate, are threatening to use their subpoena power to get to the bottom of what was the real reason that Director Gordon and others left state employ. Thank you so much, sir. You have a great day.
Thank you, Guy.
Take care. Senator Jim Runestad, and I got to tell you, there's no more passionate advocate for sunshine laws and transparency than that man. Let's get to WJR traffic with Dana Clark. Much more on the Paul W. Smith Show as we roll on your Wednesday.
Well, just looking at a couple of delays out there, Guy. Accident-free, though, 75 northbound, slow between 8 Mile and 696. Southbound, tapping the brakes between 14 and 11 Mile. Now, WJR weather first from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Michigan's Great Lakes Bay region. When you go great in pure Michigan, you don't have to go far to find your best vacation south. Breathe fresh air on one of our regional trails. Sample a taste at your leisure along our beer and wine self-guided tours, or browse our inviting shops and unrivaled antiques. For more rich inspiration and affordable trips, visit GoGreat.com. Sunshine, 29 degrees, sun for most of the day. Some clouds start peeking in this afternoon, but a nice comfortable 53 tonight, partly to mostly cloudy. Your low 28. I'm Dana Clark, WJR News with Marie Osborne in 2 minutes.
Hey, I'm Jordan,
So,
and a little thing I
Annekins.
love about the Chick-fil-A new Grilled Spicy Deluxe is that cilantro
What are
lime
we?
sauce.
What are we going to
told
do
Marie,
at 8:05?
I told Marie to be ready to talk to you. So she's going to come into StreamYard. And you guys could address whatever you want, actually. You
Did
could
you
talk-
want to throw it out there for just take a couple quick calls, have a quick chat, and then field a couple of listener calls?
Sure. Marie will come in there, and the two of you could do that for whatever you could. What do you feel like talking about? Do you want to talk about the
I think it's a huge story, and let's keep banging that drum.
Yeah, see what they think. I'm sure they're going to agree with us, but yeah, absolutely. We'll pop her in there, and then you guys could, as Mike, I hope Mike's listening. And we'll drag him into that
radio
conversation. Michael? He's busy. We're bugging him.
Our weekly tax tip for business owners.
Mike Parsons?
Yeah, sorry, I had you on mute.
Would it be okay if we took a few calls with Marie in this next segment?
Yeah, just this segment.
I think so. What do we have at 8:18? Oh, yeah, I like that. Shauna Lee. Yeah,
Yeah.
just this segment.
I got to read that.
Do we want to ask Marie to get on the StreamYard, or do we?
I told
Okay,
her.
great.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
told
that's
her
fine.
she
Just
put
throw the
that
number out early, obviously, to give us time to get some calls in.
I'll remind her here.
U.S. Capitol Police say they have received an intelligence bulletin warning of a militia plot to breach the Capitol. This
Did you hear this?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I asked Rachel about it.
About it?
Yeah.
I did not hear that.
Yeah, this is the QAnon crazies. They apparently didn't get that amendment that calls for the inauguration to be moved from March 4th to January 20th. They are recognizing March 4th as the true inauguration day.
Well, you know what? I've actually, you know what the theory is?
No, I don't.
Is that sometime in the 1800s, the United States stopped being a country and became some kind of corporation. So that means all the rules have been thrown out, and I guess no one's figured it out till now.
I see. So we just ignore everything that legislatively and constitutionally that's happened since that 1800 period?
Well, and then in over 200 years of corrupt politics, nobody's figured it out till now either. I mean, I think a lot of people would have tried that before now.
Okay, that's interesting.
Like probably the next election after it happened.
I'm a little concerned that you know that, Mike.
Well, I don't. You know, I like to keep a diverse group of friends on Facebook so that I can bring you insight like this.
Yeah, that is definitely insight. In all my years, Mike, I've never heard
Well, I mean, you know, here's the thing: just because they're conspiracy theorists don't mean they're bad people. I mean, you just kind of roll your eyes But I guess
that's
January 6th kind of shows that maybe you can't do that anymore.
Julie. Hi, Julie Beals.
Hi, Julie.
Julie is one of our oldest friends, wonderful person. She and her husband are bridge assassins. You play bridge with them, and you're going to get killed. It's just simple.
You guys you're pals. Oh,
we just played bridge with them the other night. There's this, and thank God, you can now play bridge online with your friends as long as you've got a computer or a phone or an iPad.
Are you kidding? So you guys play bridge on Zoom or something?
We get a cell phone hookup so we can chat, and then we play bridge online on BridgeBase.
You're kidding.
And my wife and Julie are both fabulous bridge players. But Julie's also very involved in Angel's Place. I believe she's on the board.
Oh, we like doing that. I hope they did well the other day with their effort. I never asked. I should have asked how that went.
Yeah, it's amazing how many of our friends are involved on at Angel's Place.
No, it's an amazing effort.
We've had another rocket attack on U.S. forces in Iraq.
Oh boy!
Retaliation for our retaliation.
Now we'll retaliate again for the retaliation. That's just coming in, obviously, huh? Oh, you know what we didn't talk about? It's kind of interesting. Did you see that Texas is going to end the mask mandate?
They're going totally maskless. Yeah. You know, it's going to be, I don't know that you want to experiment, but it'll be an interesting experiment. And
yeah, it will be an interesting experiment.
I mean, this is the same state that couldn't keep the lights on. Do you know that 1 out of 7 gas stations in Texas is still closed? You wonder why our gas prices are going up? It's because only, I think, 4 out of something like, no, I got to go back and look. Patrick DeHaan had a thing that he posted. The refineries still aren't fully operational.
We should get him on. I
mean, this is a lot harder for them to reboot than you would think.
I did not know that. Here comes Riri. There she is. Riri.
Hi, guys. Hi.
Hi,
I love the private chat here. I'm catching up on the private chat.
Oh yeah, the listeners are very chatty today. We have a lot of viewers, I should say.
Yeah.
When I call people listeners, Kevin Dietz said to me recently, Ann, it's viewers. When you're on Facebook, you have to say viewers.
Okay.
It's taken me 4 years to quit calling my listeners viewers.
Yeah, we're on the other end.
Yeah,
40 years of the other, right?
Yeah.
Yes. It's like when you say good afternoon instead of good morning. It's stuck in your head. It's like
it is. You're so on autopilot with so many things you do in this.
Yeah, it's so true.
What are we going to talk about, Guy?
I was actually going to talk a little bit about this, the fact that there could be some real reckonings. There are going to be confirmation hearings for Elizabeth Hertel coming up, and this thing about the confidential send-off for Gordon could make her confirmation, which I thought was probably pretty assured, very complicated.
But what would she? How would she be able to answer any questions about that, though? That's what my question was. I heard this yesterday.
She's not.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
Well, a lot of stories that we're watching for you. One of the biggies is that the new health department director, Elizabeth Hertel, is going to go through confirmation either today or tomorrow. Forgive me, I haven't checked the legislative schedule. But Maria, it could be interesting because you've got a lot of Republicans very upset about this confidential agreement that was given to Director Gordon. And they may want to slow walk the Hertel confirmation until they get answers from the administration, because it's really the only leverage they have.
And I think your term slow walk is probably so accurate, because I just don't know what kind of insight she would have into what happened, why this agreement was signed, or why they went that route. But you're saying the slow walk, that might be just enough pressure to apply to get some answers from the administration.
Well, and I want to quickly take some listener calls here. 1-800-859-0957, 1-800-859-0WJR. What do you think about this? Do you think it might have been something personal with Director Gordon that led to his voluntary resignation? It has been a politically incendiary position. It has also been a lot of pressure. We're hearing some reports that she didn't get along so well with Director Gordon, and that this may have been more of a termination than an actual resignation. But want to know what you think about the secrecy aspect of it. 1-800-859-0957, 1-800-859-0WJR. To your question, Marie, I don't think that there's a lot that she can add. And just like the governor, she can say, well, I can't talk about it because we forgot this agreement and we've agreed not to talk about it.
Well, these agreements, these privacy agreements, are really falling out of favor. As you well know, the Me Too movement has targeted these types of agreements. Any agreement that fosters silence is an issue. But in this case, we're talking about taxpayer money being used to basically keep something silent or under wraps. So that's, I think, a huge problem for a lot of people. But, back to your point of it having been a personal problem, it's just a personal feeling that I get that this may have been a personal issue between these two people.
If it was something having to do with his father, then say that. It was a personal issue. And why go to such lengths to say that this was a resignation? And then the emails that came out through Craig Mauger's excellent reporting, by the way, saying, you know what, I'm glad I don't have to be at that news conference. It makes it sound like that he wasn't on board with opening up the restaurants on January 22nd. Yeah. So there's also that little nugget of evidence. And you know what? Again, the governor says that she bristles when Republicans characterize this as hush money. Well, I understand that. And yes, we are in a hyper-partisan universe now where they're going to use loaded words like that. But if you don't like it, open up the window.
Yeah, exactly. Let some light in there.
Let's get to John calling in from Grosse Pointe Woods, who has some thoughts on transparency. John, good morning to you and welcome to the Paul W. Smith Show.
Good morning, Guy. Are you there?
I am certainly there, and you are there, and we're 4x4, as they say in the military. So what do you think about this confidentiality agreement? And the governor saying, this is common in the public sector.
You and I both know that in the news business, in the public affairs and public relations business, you have to respond quickly, get it right, and be accurate, and don't try to hide anything.
So do you think that she's trying to hide things here? That
would be my suspicion. And I just had a guy. It's John McCandless, and I had lunch yesterday. Had the privilege of getting together with Dick Hafner, and he's one of the finest news guys in the business, and you are too. And you can't hide things; it's going to come out. So if you did something wrong.
You've covered these corporate confidentiality agreements happened all the time in the automotive world that you inhabited, John. But in your experience in PR, have you ever seen them used to this degree in the public sector involving public money?
No.
Yeah, and that's what I find so disingenuous about the governor's answer yesterday, was her spin that these things are common in the public sector. I have yet to find anybody that say, do they happen occasionally? Yes, but that's usually extenuating circumstances. I've heard no one say that they're common or that they're normal.
They are not common. They are not normal. They do happen, but it's rare.
Yeah,
that's been my experience. Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, John, you and I both operating in the media universe, the Freedom of Information Act is such an important tool, and Marie, you and I have been using it to our advantage when we can. We have to have the ability to use it for the same kind of oversight of the governor and the legislature. It's got to happen.
Yes, I agree, sir.
All right. Take care, John. Good to hear your voice. Let's get to Nancy from Warren. Nancy, what do you think is at work here?
Well, I'm curious as to with Elizabeth Hertel. I mean, does the name Hertel ring a bell to anybody?
Sure.
The late John Curtis Jr. What are her qualifications?
Those are good.
Gordon leaves, and all of a sudden here she is, and I have not heard one person say, and I'm from the east side of Detroit. John Hertel was actually my downstairs neighbor 50 years ago.
He's a great guy, isn't he? At least I worked with him for a while. He wasn't?
Do not live above him or his wife, trust me.
Oh, well, I don't want to get into that kind of stuff. Well, actually, I do, but I better not. Well, I got to tell you, yes, but her name is Hertel by marriage. She's married to Curtis Hertel Jr., and I can also tell you that she has a long history, from my understanding, of working really well with Republicans. In fact, she worked for, I believe, the House Republicans over a period of years. So this may be one of those mixed marriages where you've got someone that leans right with someone that leans middle or left. And she has worked well across the aisle, and I think that's one of the things that maybe made her a good consensus pick. She's supposedly a fine administrator, and she can work the political universe as well, which is why they thought this was going to be an easier confirmation. But given the light of these revelations about these agreements, it may become a little bit thornier. We'll be following it for you from Lansing, that's for sure. Let's get to WJR Traffic with Dana Clark. When we come back, what happens when parents are anxious and kids end up depressed? It's happening a lot in COVID virtual learning homes. We'll explore that next on the Paul W. Smith Show.
This report is sponsored by Exergen. Accuracy matters. Get a $5 rebate by trading up any non-contact thermometer toward an Exergen purchased at any retailer. Accuracy matters, especially when it comes to checking for fever. Exergen's accuracy is backed by published peer-reviewed clinical studies. Details at exergen.com.
75 northbound, slow ride between 8 Mile down to 696. On the flip side of 75 southbound, seeing those brake lights between 14 and 11 Mile, but accident free at the moment. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Clarkston Window and Door. Over 31 years in business, over 450 combined years of experience installing windows. Trust the specialists at Clarkston Window and Door. Act now to take advantage of 31% off install windows, doors, and garage doors. 248-338-6781 or clarkstonwindow.com.
Milder weather returning briefly like today, and then colder again toward the end of the week. We'll see a few clouds this morning, otherwise clear. Mostly sunny to partly cloudy this afternoon. High 52. Tonight clear, 28. Suburbs a little bit cooler. Tomorrow clouds, sun, cooler, upper 30s. Friday, sunshine in the mid-40s. From the Weather Channel, meteorologist Ray Stagicom, News Talk 760 WJR.
Small businesses are the backbone of Michigan's economy. And
We almost got some GuyMZ there instead of TMZ, some hot gossip.
Yeah, I agree. We almost got some real juicy stuff going on there.
Sounded like they were loud neighbors.
Yeah.
Woo.
That usually you want to be the upstairs neighbor because the noise comes from above, not below.
It was John that ended up running the smart buses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
State Fair, Smart. In fact, is he still doing that?
I don't know, but I will tell you, when he was the editorial director alongside Chuck Stokes for a while, I think when he got the Ziggy from someplace, and Channel 7 hired him to give him a job, and they gave him some stuff to do. I worked with him on a couple of things. He was a very, very just solid, strong guy.
Mm-hmm. So he resigned from Smart back in last March, according to this story.
Mm-hmm.
They voted to terminate his agreement. The Smart Board of Directors, for cause, did not give him severance.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, that was almost a year ago. Or
Was Patterson still alive then? Was
No.
Bob?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Brooks was gone. Board Chairman Hillary Chambers said during the meeting that the authority received information a year ago, last February, that indicated that Hertel had been parking his fleet of personal.
All right, Shauna Lee is there. Our out will be 26:30.
Okie doke.
Little controversy there.
You got frozen there for a minute, so I didn't hear you. But
a little controversy there.
Yeah, but he was parking personal vehicles where, at the bus yard or what?
Yes, in the Smart facility. And there were also accusations of Smart resources inappropriately used. I don't know, though, if that was ever confirmed.
Okay.
But
I tell you what, I thought he did a
the
really
news
good.
says.
I thought he did a really good job at Smart, especially filling in the blanks when DDOT was having all of its problems.
Very sharp administrator.
Yeah.
But
By
I
the
have
way,
not
when we were talking to Edsel Ford the other day, he called in from his warehouse where he has all of his. Apparently, he has kind of like an office man cave at in Grosse Pointe where he has his collector's cars, because he's selling two of them. He's selling an Edsel station wagon, and he's selling one of their Woodies, one of the old Woody station wagons. I don't know. It's up for auction in Scottsdale. I told Gail, I said, "Oh my God, I would love to have that as a cottage car. I would jump on that
Can you
in
imagine
a
yourself
heartbeat."
tooling around the cottage, the area? That
Well,
would
you
be
know,
perfect.
what you can't do anymore, I would love to have a vintage Chevy pickup truck and just load the grandkids in the back and go get ice cream. But you can't do that anymore. Everybody's got to be belted, and
Never allow that. They'd
yeah,
be like, "Oh
yeah.
no, Dad."
And
you're not doing
all
that."
the simple pleasures that you and I enjoyed growing up in a more permissive, and
no.
somehow we survived it all.
You and I would be shot down on that one. The kids would be like, "Have you lost your mind?"
I loved hearing from John McCandless there. And for
And
those
he
of you
brings
that
up a very good point. He is right on about that. That was for those of us in this end of the business,
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
we have been discussing a lot of the impact of COVID-19 virtual learning on our kids. This incredible shift in lifestyle of going from sending them off to class every day to having them at home, having parents at home working. It has added a lot of stress into the home/workplace because now they're one and the same. Shauna Lee is a University of Michigan Associate Professor of Social Work and has been looking into this and has some disturbing information on the impact this is having on our kids. Professor Lee, good to have you with us. Is Professor Lee there? Because I'm not hearing her.
Try again.
Professor Lee, can you hear us? There you are.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Good morning to
Yes,
you.
I'm here.
This
Good
is what
morning.
happens.
Thank you.
Yeah, when we put people on hold forever. As you looked at this, what were you looking to ascertain with your study?
Well, we were looking to document exactly what you said in the introduction, just to demonstrate the experiences of parents as they transition to this unprecedented new role of supporting their child's education while also trying to work from home.
What have you been able to identify in terms of mental health characteristics that are problematic in our children? And is this happening organically in the child because of what they're going through? Or is it mom and dad transferring some of that stress and anxiety onto the child?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our study suggested, first of all, very high rates of depression and anxiety among parents, which is probably not surprising given the stresses that people were experiencing. And indeed, our results suggested that the parents who are experiencing more symptoms of mental health problems reported that their children were also more anxious in the aftermath of lockdown and the closure of schools. So
As
kids
parents,
seem to be
as parents, how do we do it, that kind of self-diagnosis? I mean, we're not trained clinicians. Are we good at spotting the warning signs of anxiety and depression in our kids?
I think it's challenging, especially with younger children who might manifest those symptoms of depression and anxiety in a lot of different behaviors that aren't clearly representative of worries. So, for example, small children will sometimes regress to earlier developmental stages. And for a parent, that might be hard to understand why their child is demonstrating behaviors that they'd already kind of progressed beyond. So it's hard for parents to really identify these types of behaviors. And I think it can be helpful to talk to professionals if parents have concerns about their children.
Were these stresses all virtual learning oriented, or was it also just the stress of the parent having to work from home and parent and child being thrust together for 7 days a week when they're really only used to having 2 days of that kind of close quarters?
Yeah, right. So we did ask questions about that, and some of the things that parents mentioned included both schools being closed, but also other activities being closed, like dance class, gymnastics, and really social isolation was a huge factor. So parents and children being separated from playmates, grandparents, aunts and uncles, etc. All of these factors kind of combine to make the situation very stressful for parents and for their children.
I'm going to ask a question with a personal slant on it, because our friend group has an awful lot of young grandchildren in it, children that are 3 and 4 years old. And we've all been talking about our concerns about social isolation. These are kids that normally would be going to preschool or going to daycare. In some cases, the daycare slots are being filled by frontline workers' children, and they're not taking kids in whose parents are at home. What is the long-term consequences of that you're delaying the socialization of these children who would normally be going to preschool?
Yeah, that's, I think, a really important thing we need to be thinking about, because you're right. A lot of children in the 3, 4, and 5 age range would be in preschool, navigating for the first time possibly their peer relationships. I think the research is actually fairly optimistic on this point, that children, when they have the opportunity to go back to preschool and more normal social interactions, most of them are probably going to be able to adapt and rebound from some of the setbacks. Some of my concerns are around kids who were vulnerable before the pandemic. So, for example, children with special needs or learning disabilities, children with autism. It's going to be hard for some of those kids to make a full rebound. And so I hope that schools and policymakers can think about adding resources for some of those children who might not be in such a great position to be able to, overcome some of the setbacks from the pandemic.
So give us some tools to solve this problem. If we as parents are transferring our depression and our anxiety and our stresses upon our kids, how do we break that cycle?
Yeah, well, I think above all, as I try to tell myself as well, is just to be, parents are hard on themselves. I mean, we are, doing the best we can. I firmly believe that. And most families, I think, in our study, a lot of parents reported benefits of spending more time with their kids, engaging in more positive activities, showing more love and warmth. So I think there's actually also a silver lining to this, and that parents can, with their kids, even start to tell a story about both the challenges during the pandemic, what about it was hard, but also what were some of the sources of resiliency that parents and children might have demonstrated, like what were some of the benefits of spending more time together. And telling a story that kind of balances out the positive and the negatives might be one way for kids to adapt and cope.
I wanted to ask you about something that we saw yesterday in a separate study, and this may be outside of your wheelhouse, but that the fact that inquiries about ADHD are up somewhere in the neighborhood of 20%, because as parents spend more time with their children at home, they look at the restless behavior and maybe wonder, does my child have a problem? And I, to some degree, I think it may be just a lack of awareness about how busy a child is when you're trying to keep them on task, that they're just unaware of what goes on in the classroom all the time. And it also may be a legitimate concern. What are you seeing? And is it a problem, or is it just maybe parents overreacting because they didn't realize how hard it was to keep their child engaged?
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to that issue. I think it's probably a lot of different factors. So parents are reporting more behavior problems of their children. In our study, it was about a third of parents said that their children were acting out, were more depressed and anxious, etc. Other research has suggested similar patterns, that about half of parents in another study reported that their children have been acting out more since the pandemic. I think the online learning environment is very challenging for a lot of children to navigate, especially in the younger age ranges. So some of the solutions, I think, are to reach out for professional support and help. It can't hurt if you have concerns about your child. It can't hurt to get a professional opinion or assessment of ADHD or other learning problems or potentially mental health concerns like anxiety and depression. Those things are things that young children experience, even though we tend to think of them as adult issues, at least with depression and anxiety. So I encourage parents to try to reach out to the schools if they're available, or to talk to professionals and get a second opinion and kind of move forward from that if there are concerns. Yeah.
You know, it's important to note that if kids aren't in school, the school counselors may have some extra time on their hands to give you individual attention that you might not all, normally get. That's a really important point. Professor Shauna Lee, we so appreciate this study and just kind of giving us a heads up that we could be transferring our concerns onto our children. Take care and have a great day.
Thank you so much.
From the University of Michigan, Associate Professor of Social Work. When we come back, Andrew Cuomo under fire from all sides, many calling for his resignation. What is the likelihood of that happening? We'll check in with one of our correspondents from Fox News next on the Paul W. Smith Show, but let's check in with Dana Clark. Traffic first.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Sometimes a hiring freeze happens because you can't find the right people. So follow the warming trend to Indeed. They have tools to help you find the quality candidates you need to help your business. Learn more at Indeed.com/credit.
Still accident-free out there. Lots of sunshine. Sunglass alert today. A good day also to get that car washed. Delayed along 75 northbound between 9 and 11 mile. Also a slow ride 75 southbound between 12 and 11 mile. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Amish Direct Furniture. Amish Direct Furniture carries a huge variety of high-quality handmade furniture made here in the USA. Stop by Amish Direct's new showroom in Sterling Heights and meet their knowledgeable staff, or shop online at AmishDirect.com. That's AmishDirect.com. We do remain dry today, a bit of a warm up, a nice day to get out and enjoy the weather. A high 53 today, some sun, some clouds mixed in tonight, partly to mostly cloudy, your low 28. Sunshine, 32 degrees. I'm Dana Clark, WJR News with Marie Osborne in 2 minutes.
Heart attack and stroke can be devastating and even deadly. The good news is they're 100% preventable. Listen to Dr. Brian Collender, MD, live tonight at 7:05 p.m. to discuss this and more. Don't forget, that's tonight at 7:05 p.m. on News Talk 760 WJR.
This report is sponsored by Compassionate.
You doing okay? You need anything?
Breakfast in the bathroom. Other than that, I'm fine. You can't help me with either one.
No. You could go get a break. You have.
Yeah, I'm actually going to run really quickly here. She was interesting, and I'm glad that we could get in some of that other stuff.
Yeah, she was extremely helpful.
Those are the things that I wish we would do on our show more often, because they're non-news, but they're still packed with information. And I've got to kind of adjust things with Laura, and if we get an extra hour to play with sometime in the future, maybe this will resolve itself. But to make sure that good information stories like that aren't lost just because they're not necessarily great talk topics, or how do you change them into a good talk topic?
Because that one could be, because I think that parents would call in, because I've had this study, I've had this conversation with every member of my family, my mom, my sister, who's a child psychologist, and this is exactly what we've been saying from the beginning of the pandemic, that your attitude directly affects everyone around you, and that includes your kids. And it even includes your kids and my kids. If they think you and I are doing okay and we're dealing with the pandemic fine, they're going to follow our lead. It's a no-brainer. It's a great talk topic, actually.
It is. You know, my concern in all of this is, and I'm not saying that parents are out of touch, but I've seen some of the really disengaged parents in our peer group here in our area and at our children's school back when they were in school. You know, the au pair effect almost. These people have no concept of what is normal behavior in a child and what is abnormal behavior. And anything that takes up more time than they want to give, they get their hackles up. Now, I think that's probably more of an upper income thing, but I do worry about whether or not we've got some way out of touch parents ascribing depression, anxiety, and ADHD onto kids that are just behaving like kids.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly. Yeah. No. All right,
and-
take a break. Go.
And
take a
Sandy,
break.
to your point, I wasn't picking on Texas, but I am just saying if you're going to do that, be prepared for the consequences of it, and you are experimenting with people's health here. And the other thing is, just because there's not a mask mandate doesn't mean people aren't going to wear them or that they shouldn't wear them if they're in a higher risk situation.
Right. No, good point. All right.
All right, I will be back. And then we've got Tanya is locked in and loaded.
Yep, she should be. We'll have to bug them if they don't call us.
Okay.
I'll let you
After
know.
the January
Thank
assault,
you.
Fox's Sean Langell has more.
At least 59 Michigan National Guard members stationed at the U.S. Capitol are reportedly sick after eating undercooked meals that may have contained metal shavings and feathers. A bipartisan coalition of Michigan's congressional delegation is demanding immediate action to remedy the situation. Officials say they are working with food contractors to fix the issues and that the number of incidents have been relatively small. Meanwhile, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says all Guard troops are expected to leave the Capitol by March 12th. Sean Langell, Fox News.
At least 10 rockets targeting military bases in Iraq were launched on Wednesday, although there's been no confirmation of who was behind the attack. Country legend Dolly Parton posting a video to Twitter of her getting the Moderna vaccine against COVID. She helped fund the development of the vaccine last spring. She gave $1 million to Vanderbilt University, the medical center, which worked with Moderna to produce it. She has some words of advice.
So I just want to say to all of you cowards out there, don't be such a chicken squat. Get out there and get shot.
WJR News Time, 8:33. Checking the world markets this morning. They all remain up. For WJR News, I'm Marie Osborne. We'll have more with Guy Gordon in 2 minutes.
The Detroit winter started out mild, but has ended up brutal. You can see it with the damage to the streets in your car, but you might not see the damage it's done to your roof. Paul W. here. The massive snow accumulations, the freezing and thawing, the ice dams can turn minor roofing issues into major disasters. Call Victor's Roofing today and schedule your free 21-point video inspection of your roof before the spring rush hits. Their inspection includes a complete video analysis of your roof from top to bottom. Their expert roof technicians will also carefully examine the areas that are early indicators of roof failure and point out any issues that need to be addressed. If any are found, Victor's will give you a customized plan to address them. And don't forget the Give Back Through Victor's program. For every 100 roofs Victor's installs, they're going to donate a roof to a family in need. Schedule your free, no-obligation 21-point video inspection at 734-6666-914 or book an appointment online at victorsroofing.com.
Hi, it's Frank Beckman here. Why not add a little excitement to your sports watching experience these days by betting on all the action at FanDuel? There's a reason why FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. Their app is so simple to use. They get great odds on all different kinds of betting markets, unique fun bet types like same-game parlays, exclusive always-on.
Tanya is there. And we're 45 seconds away here.
Okay. In the home stretch.
That's right.
It looks like you and I are going to have a nice day to walk our dogs.
Yeah, after my nap. I actually walked my dog yesterday at 4 when we would normally be doing the show.
Me too. I didn't get a chance to listen in. The one thing that I didn't hear, we had Mark from Camille's on.
Uh-huh.
I was really curious about the lawsuit, and now that they're back up to 50%, if that kind of weakens his case.
that's the place in New Baltimore, right?
Right, but he was one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit against Whitmer Gordon and the state about the capacity restrictions and the curfew.
707-117 for confidential help. Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
Well, there is a political firing squad, and there are members of both parties holding weapons here when it comes to Governor Andrew Cuomo in New York, with not one, not two, but now three women coming forward alleging inappropriate behavior or outright sexual overtones and come-ons. And it has led to a louder chorus of people calling for his resignation. Let's get an update from our Fox News correspondent and WJR contributor, Tanya Powers. Tanya, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Tell us about the level and the breadth of those that are calling for the governor's resignation, and how much does this raise the likelihood that that could actually happen?
Well, the notable parts of this are, like you said, it's not just Republicans. These are also Democrats who have also called for his resignation. One of the most notable ones has come from Kathleen Rice, who's a representative, a Long Island Democrat. She has called for him to resign too. And the other thing that I found very striking on this, the New York Working Families Party has also called for him to resign. He ran on their ticket for his 3 gubernatorial victories. So that's kind of substantial as well. There have been other assembly members who are also Democrats who have said that, sexual harassment was rampant in the State House. They've already spoken out before now. They have, of course, gotten louder. But yeah, the calls for this continue to grow. Mayor Bill de Blasio here in the city has also called. That is not a surprise. Those two really haven't gotten along at all.
Did he actually call for the resignation, or did he raise the specter that we're getting close to that point?
He has been critical. Let me put it that way. He may not have said he needs to resign, but he isn't. He's not supporting him. Let me put it that way.
No love lost, to be sure there. So, if this was the private sector, there is a question of due process, that you have to investigate the claims, see if it's legitimate, and maybe before it's run its course in the courts or wherever the complaint is filed, you can take action then. But in the public sector, it's a little bit different. You've got 3 accusers, but do we need to have, or should we have, an investigation before the vote of the people is forced here, and he is either ousted or is forced to resign? What's the status of that? Will there be an independent investigation to either clear the air or to confirm these allegations?
Yeah, there's already one going on. As a matter of fact, the state attorney general is looking into this. She is also a Democrat, and she has said, look, this has to be handled independently. This has to be looked into. She says she's going to hire an outside law firm to make sure there is independence among this investigation. There was back and forth over the weekend about who was going to lead it and how much power they were going to have. Were they going to have subpoena power? And she was like, look, we have to have subpoena power. We have to be able to do this without, somebody else in place to, guard the self-interest of the governor or anything like that. She got her way and has been, starting this investigation as of, the first of the week.
I'm going to ask you to kind of stray into subjective territory here, but just talk to me about the governor's messaging throughout all this. I think there are going to be textbooks written about what not to do.
That's possible. I mean, his messaging is not really different from a lot of messaging we've seen in the past when especially high-profile men are accused of sexual harassment, right? There was this statement that he put out, and even one of his accusers has said that's just not enough. That he said he acknowledged some of his behavior and that he, was trying to bring levity to serious work and stuff like that, and it may have gone too far, as far as the way that it was taken. But that kind of it sort of gets put in the same category as the non-apology apology that we hear a lot of times from public figures when things like this happen. It's not necessarily, I take responsibility for my actions. I am so sorry I treated you this way. It is, well, I'm sorry you took that the wrong way, which is a whole different thing and not an apology.
Right.
So that's kind of, and that seems to be where a lot of people are taking issue with the statement that he put out. about this so far. He has not spoken in public about any of this or really anything else since like last Wednesday. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when he goes before the press again and has another briefing or whatever, because he's gonna get questions if he doesn't address it head on.
Well, and that's my next question, I guess. Where do we go from here? It sounds like a number of the partisans in his own party don't want to wait for the conclusion of the AG's investigation, so that kind of leaves us here in a twilight zone. What do you think happens next?
That's a good question, and not one I can speculate on, actually. It remains to be seen whether he says, no, I think I can fight this and come out the other side of it, or if, he loses enough support and donors to where this is not a tenable situation anymore.
And then at the same time, I know your network, and you can weigh into this or not, has raised a lot of critical questions about how Chris Cuomo is handling this on CNN. He came out night before last and said, look, I'm not going to talk about it. I guess I give him points for recusing himself from this, talking about this issue. But then does that mean on his newscast that there will not be any Andrew Cuomo stories, or that they're just going to have another anchor handle them?
That's a good question as well, and again, not one I can answer, unfortunately. I don't know how they're, supposed to handle that as far as like, what they feel is appropriate over at CNN to do. That's kind of out of my territory.
No, understood. But it's, as a media person and as talking to a media person, we can only imagine how awkward that is for both the producers, the assignment desk, and the anchors themselves, and the correspondents.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially within the newsroom. Tanya Powers, thank you so much, our Fox News correspondent there on Andrew Cuomo and the myriad of problems he faces on all sides. When we come back, we'll check in with Frank as we roll on towards his show here on Paul W. Smith. We'll be back with more right after we check in with Dana.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Sometimes a hiring freeze happens because you can't find the right people. So follow the warming trend to Indeed. They have tools to help you find the quality candidates you need to help your business. Learn more at Indeed.com/credit.
Still accident free out there, guys. Seeing a slight delay 75 northbound between 9 and 11 Mile. Now WJR weather first from the Weather Channel.
I teased Frank without knowing whether or not we really had Frank. Is he available this morning?
Well, that's a good question, Guy. Hang on. This is a slot that's there every day, that we're supposed to do every day.
Yeah.
So let me confirm with Chris, just making sure. Frank is there. Okay, I'm texting just to be sure. Maybe Michael will help us. Hey, Mike, have you guys tested?
Repeating. Women come to there is it.
Mike is editing podcasts.
His show here.
Yeah. Michael?
Oh, yes.
We like watching you work. You're doing a nice job.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is Frank good to go? Have you guys tested?
Yeah,
him?
I just checked with him. He's good.
Okay, excellent.
So we have one spot in Gupta, so three minutes out, 55:20, 55:50 at the latest, or traffic at 55:20, 55:50 at the latest.
I will try to make it 55:20 to give you some breathing room there.
Some cushion, yeah, that'd be good.
Did I see Mr. Luzinski FaceTime me for a moment there?
Let me ask.
No. He walked up to the camera in your studio and kind of walked right up to it and gave me a great mug shot.
Oh yeah.
Tell him I said hello.
Yeah, he has to look at every new camera. He's a bit of a film buff, so.
Oh,
Today he's dressed like the Invisible Man because he's got sunglasses and his mask on. I think it's a good look.
The Claude Rains Invisible Man or the gal from Handmaid's Tale Invisible Man?
Since I've never watched The Handmaid's Tale, the Claude Rains. Darkman would also be an acceptable comparison.
Which, by the way, is that not one of the greatest, most offbeat movies ever? I love Darkman.
Yeah, I watched it one time. I guess what happened is I think it came out the same year as 1989 Batman. Rich actually knows the story, and so I think it got buried behind the star power of Michael Keaton as Batman.
That was the Sam Raimi. That was a Sam Raimi movie, wasn't it?
I believe
Darkman was.
so. I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, I thought it was great, and it was supposed to be a series. I mean, that was supposed to be an ongoing series, and it just died on the vine. And I thought it was excellent. I would have loved to have seen more iterations of it.
Huh. Okay, it came out in 1990. All I know is that it got buried behind some other big giant blockbuster of a similar ilk.
By the way, have either one of you guys seen the new Tim Allen reality series on the History Channel?
No, not yet.
Assembly Required. It's
No,
got some rocky parts, but it is funny and it is really clever. It is really interesting to see these guys making up stuff out of nothing.
Oh, it's like MacGyver.
It is very MacGyver-ish.
Whenever I talk to you guys about movies and series, I feel very out of it. Because all I ever do is watch news. I don't watch anything else. It's really bad.
That's why you're the top of your profession.
I do watch Michigan State Spartans. I'd like somebody to say, go green, please, after
Go
last
green,
night.
and we're back.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
And at 8:46, let's check in with Frank Beckman as he gears up for 3 hours of excellence on his show. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, buddy. I'm already feeling societal fatigue.
I'm sure you are. I got to ask you.
That was such a great piece by Dick Hafner. I got to tell you.
I unfortunately was in a conversation with Ann Thomas at the time and did not hear it, but we could probably write a book on that.
It's an amazing piece. You got to go back and listen to that one, Guy. It's very, very special about societal fatigue and how we're all suffering from it. Boy, are we ever.
I'm certain of that. I want to get your take on what happened last night in college basketball. Michigan getting hammered in its game. I mean, not a good look at all. And then Michigan State, Tom Izzo and his guys pulling it back together after a really lackluster start. What do you think is going to happen here?
Well, it's a real puzzle, and I'm shocked that the team Michigan that we expect to do very, very well in the tournament, that has been so stellar under Juwan Howard this year. He's going to be the coach of the year in the Big Ten too. But that was a stunner suddenly, and Michigan State turning it around. Tom Izzo's a veteran coach though, Guy, and so I don't think we ought to be surprised when he brings a team back to what he expected it to be when the season really began. So I mean, he's just a great coach, one of the best of all time, and I think this is a tribute to him that team can fight back from the trouble it's had this season.
It is, and he always seems to do it right around February 26th or 27th. How does he do that?
Well, we're getting close to March Madness, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, his timing is just legendary. So I know you have been digging into this confidentiality agreement. I got a call from a good friend who's been in government for many years, works in institutions that have at-will employees, who asks the question, and it's a great one: why would anybody need a confidentiality agreement for someone that's an at-will employee? They can't come after you for wrongful termination. There are no claims they can make against you. So what are they talking about releasing him from claims against the state in this agreement?
Yeah, it can only be a personal embarrassment, I would think, and that could go either way in these agreements, because both sides are told they have to be quiet about it. But Guy, we're going to talk about it as well this morning, just as you have. But this is the word hush money comes to mind, or the term hush money, and that's almost what it sounds like, doesn't it?
Well, and we heard from the governor that said she bristled at that term, and I said, well, okay, but then you've allowed the term to be used by not providing transparency and sunlight here.
Right.
Nobody
Governor,
would be using it.
That's my money, Governor, and my neighbor's money that you're giving out to these people.
Yeah, and now, but in terms of, I mean, why would she have to pay? I mean, if you go with that narrative with Director Gordon, then how do you explain the pattern of not only giving it to Gordon, but to his deputy and to Steve Gray at UIA? It's not hush money for all of them. It appears to me a pattern of just giving out golden parachutes, perhaps.
Well, perhaps, but there has to be a purpose in mind. There has to be a repay at some point, and I don't know what that's going to be. But they got nice golden parachutes here for separations that were supposedly, voluntary on both sides, and bottom line, I don't know if it's about embarrassment or something else that's more sinister. I just don't know, Guy. We're guessing at it, and we'll have to continue to do that until the great reporters like Craig Mauger at the Detroit News can uncover more when they're in Lansing and going through all these documents.
I got to tell you, we are seeing, for those that want to rail against the media and say that it's partisan, this would be one of those examples I would cite where maybe not so much. Craig's done a great job. Jonathan Oosting over at Bridge has done a good job. Chad at Crane's Detroit Business, and Paul Egan and his team at the Free. I've been reading all of them, and they've done excellent work. And the one thing that's going to be really interesting here is, are there more emails? And the whole thing comes down to this yet again, Frank, is that we're the least transparent state in the nation when it comes to the governor and the legislative branch. And the House has been trying to correct this under GOP leadership for over a decade, and it keeps dying in the Senate. But when you listen to Mike Shirkey and some of his people, it sounds like they're ready to finally do something about it here.
I hope so, because it's after all what we taxpayers deserve is an honest accounting of what's going on in Lansing with our money that's collected from us as taxpayers, and I think we've got a right to demand that. So that's just my 2 cents on it, but I think I'll find some agreement there.
And I'll give you more than 2 cents. You know that, right?
You bet.
All right. Well, we will look forward to that. Anything else you're working on for today that we should know about?
Well, that's the big one that we want to get into, and we'll do that with Steve Johnson from the House Oversight Committee, which is starting to unpeel this, and they want to call Director Gordon and the others in to testify in front of a legislative committee. So we'll get into that. Jocelyn Benson will be here to talk about this story about the election audits, which I thought had long since been completed, and she just announced that they've been completed. I thought they were long since done, didn't you?
No, I knew that the Wayne County audit, especially, and the City of Detroit audit was still going to be a deep dive that was going to take more time. And so it didn't surprise me. I think it's disappointing that these audits are done after the fact, not before canvassing, not when they could actually be relevant. I mean, yes, maybe they'll add a measure of confidence. I think those that lack confidence, there's nothing you could tell them that would assuage
that's a great point, because everything's over. The votes have been counted. They're official now. We have a new president who's been inaugurated, and there's no arguing the case anymore.
The other thing, and we asked her about this when we had her on earlier today, Frank, and it's a discussion that I'd love to have with you over a coffee or a beer, is this H.R. 1 bill that's now pending in the U.S. House. It's one of Nancy Pelosi's dream bills. When you look at some of the stuff that's in that bill, first of all, who is the federal government to tell states how to run their elections? Just for coming out of the gate. And then secondly, they want to have absentee voting, no excuses nationwide. I think states should have a voice in whether that happens. 2, they're saying that if the ballot, AV ballot, is postmarked on Election Day, they can still count it anywhere from 10 days out. Mm-hmm. Beyond the election day, and if you before you give out, they're going to make it so a clerk cannot ask for identification from someone requesting an absentee ballot. Tell me how that's going to work.
Well, I just want them to tell me how they expect there will not be any conspiracy theories over all of that.
Exactly. How does that boost anybody's confidence that they're still going to be counting ballots 10 days after the fact?
Yeah. You know what? The bottom line on this election, though, Guy, and I think I've said this pretty clearly, is that I think Democrats did a great job of identifying that their voters were not going to be at the polls themselves because of COVID, because of whatever concerns. They were not going to have a big turnout that way, and so they had to find a way to get ballots into their voters' hands, and they did. And that's not fixing the ballots or anything else. It's just making sure the ballots got out there.
That's true, except I got to tell you, Frank, I had more than a dozen come-ons from Laura Trump, the Republican Party, more texts from them telling me how I could apply for an absentee ballot and giving me a link to do so. So it wasn't just Jocelyn Benson that was sending out those come-ons. It was also third parties. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed as well, because you've got the MTV Get Out the Vote group that was sending out stuff. I think it should be a one-to-one thing. You want an absentee ballot, you must request it directly from your clerk, that you can't be prompted by a myriad of partisans.
Yeah, or by a blind letter in the mail that says, here's your application, fill it out now and we'll get you a ballot. You won't have to do anything on election day.
Exactly, because I was still getting a lot of applications for kids that haven't lived in this house for 10 years. I wish they still did. Those were good times.
Yeah, exactly.
Frank, we look forward to your show coming up in just a few minutes. Have a great day, my friend, and we will be listening. And for the rest of you, thanks for being with us. You can always find our podcasts at WJR.com. Take care. My thanks to Ann, Ms. Dana, also Marie Osborne, and Mike Parsons, who pushed the buttons. Take care, and we'll see you tomorrow at 5:30. And for Paul.
Well, just seeing a couple of accidents now popping up, Guy. One along Woodward southbound at Long Lake accident was reported from Macomb Township.
All right, so when we do this end broadcast, I'm going to keep you up, guys, so we can record those new opens and closes.
Can we end the broadcast right now?
Yeah.
So long, everybody.
Bye,
Thanks for
everyone.
joining us.
Bye.